So, very good morning to all of you. First of all, I would like to wish everyone a happy Environmental Day, seeking the blessings of His Holiness Dr. Shivaratri Rajendra Mahaswamiji. I submit my respectful pranams to His Holiness Dr. Shivaratri Deshikendra Mahaswamiji, Chancellor of JSS Academy of Higher Education and Research. So at this point of time, I would recall Mahatma Gandhiji's saying, environment is going to provide all basic needs to the human, but not its greeds and wants. So since a time immemorial, the Indian tradition and culture is being associated with environmental conservation and protection. So due to urbanization, industrialization, and commercialization, globalization, we have been witnessing the environmental deterioration. And directly and indirectly, the present COVID-19 pandemic situation also is one of the example of misuse of biodiversity, or you can say biodiversity over exploitation. So in order to sensitize and create awareness, so across the globe, we have been following environmental calendar in each year. So June 5th, World Environmental Day is one such example to make a commitment to preserve our environment and also to increase the quality of our environment. So Department of Environmental Science under the Faculty of Natural Science of JSS AHER, so is taking a lot of activities and to mark the environmental calendar. And we have been conducting rallies, exhibitions, quizzes, debate competitions, street plays, etc. But due to the pandemic situation, so we were not able to conduct all these activities. So right now we just decided to go with the webinar, inviting speakers to at least to enlighten our students, to sensitize our students about environmental issues. And before beginning the program, I would like to request our course coordinator, Dr. Shivraj HP, just to welcome the authorities of the institution, speakers, and the participants. Sir, it's over to you, sir.
Very good morning, all. I am Dr. Shivraj HP, coordinator in the Department of Environmental Sciences at AHER. A warm wishes to you all on this occasion, and let us put an effort to protect our environment, to make it clean with kind of conservative thoughts and good initiatives. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to the World Environmental Day celebration that's being organized by Department of Environmental Science. First and foremost, I would like to welcome our Dean and Director of Research, Dr. Balasubramaniam S. and Dr. Ravisha K. Head of the department, who always motivating us and supporting us. They are all kind of backbone to our department, always encourage us to do good work in environmental specialization. In this occasion, I would like to welcome both of you, sir.
Thank you.
Also, I would like to welcome all our speakers. Actually, they are going to share their thoughts because they are all on practical fields. They are experienced lots of issues related to environmental science. So they are going to share some of their experience in this occasion. And they have agreed to be part of the event, given their busy schedule. I welcome Anusha P., Assistant Conservator of Forest, Mysuru Division. Welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
I also welcome K. Srinivasan, Project Coordinator, Western Ghats NCF. He's also going to share his thoughts and some of his activities towards conservation of environment and restoration of ecosystem. He's with us today. Welcome you, sir.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Another two speaker, Gururaj K. and Amarakshar VM, they are going to join later. I also going to welcome them for this World Environmental Day celebration, who is going to share some of their experience and activities towards conservation of environment. I also welcome all our faculty members, students from FLS and FNS, faculty and students from institutes and constituent college of our CSSIS and other institutions. I welcome all. I also welcome and very thankful to our university authority for their continuous support for all the activities being conducted by Department of Environmental Science. I welcome all the participants to this webinar. I hope all the participants going to acquire and they are going to enlighten with some important conservation thoughts and activities shared by the speakers and our other. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, Doctor. Now I would request our Director of Research, Dean Faculty of Life Science, Dr. Bala Subramaniam sir, to say a few words to mark or to on the occasion.
Thank you, Linkaraj. With the blessings of His Holiness Swarati Deshendra Mahaswamiji, the Chancellor of the University, the Vice Chancellor, the Pro Chancellor, Registrar, and Dr. Ravisha. I am introducing this program today to all the participants. The World Environmental Day is every year we are conducting this program. After that, we will forget about that. That is a normal procedure which is happened since I am teaching environment science for the past 30 years. The same thing we are doing. One meeting we will conduct. We will learn. This time I want to introduce a new concept on the minds of the young people as well as the thinking of our senior professors here present here. Astrology and environment. How astrology is working, how environment is working. Both are, some people will tell astrology is false. Scientists will tell astrology is false. And some have faith. And some people are on both way. Sometimes they will believe them, sometimes they will not believe. Like this, what we are telling, the public will believe sometime. Sometimes they will not believe. So astrology environment, the word disaster, which is we are using quite frequently, it is arrived from the Greek word star. Pandemic. It is Italian word. It is evil star. Bird star and evil star. It is mentioned in the astrology very, very, very long back. Like this, our Indian astrology also we are number one in the world in the astrology and other things. Why I am comparing this astrology and this? There are people before we are having the supercomputer for our EMD. Before we are having everything in our people in the village and rural areas, they will tell another half an hour rain will come. The rain will start based on the wind moisture. They will tell the rain will start already. It is started in the west coast. It will reach another 1 or 2 days to the interior Karnataka. Like that, they will tell. It is like a predict and forecasting. That is more important for any environmentalist. You have to observe the local situation, how it is going on, local environment, local how it is. Local environment will affect the people. Otherwise, if you are telling a theory, if you are riding a vehicle, it will affect the air quality. If you are telling, nobody, okay, everybody is riding, including those who are telling, they are also using the car and other things. Nobody stops. We are not Gandhi that we will stop all these things. Because once Gandhi become Mahatma Gandhi, then only he stopped everything. He will come with a dhoti and a towel. If somebody is going with a dhoti and a towel, anybody is respecting? Nobody will respect. So, environment scientists should first observe what we need, what is environment, what is this locality, what is required, and how we will do it, how to predict and forecast. That is the major. What I want to tell, astrology also, using the stars, they will predict and tell the future of X or Y persons. Environmentalist also, based on the problem, you have to predict and forecast. The reservoirs which we constructed in the whole of India after independence will destroy the forest and other things. That is well-known factor, and it will destroy the ecosystem. How far it is useful for the public, that you can. Otherwise, you are entered into a controversial things, and what you are telling, nobody will believe. Whether he is a NCO or other people, they will learn. What is the benefit? Again, it is called the cost benefit analysis. It is included in the second MSc. Swaraj, I am correct, in the second MSc syllabus also it is included.
Yes,
We have to think the economy. We are not ready to forego our facilities, scientific advancement and facilities. Using a car, using a bicycle, using everything. What we are having, we are not ready to forego that. But we want to conserve. For that, the right thing is how to predict and forecast the local situation. Local environmental is different, and universal environment is different. We cannot follow the Western type of things to introduce in India, or especially in the North Indian environment is different, and South Indian environment is. There are several papers are available in the one Himalayan study I referred. Weather forecast using traditional knowledge. It is a scientific paper published by a Jharkhand scientist, professor. It is weather using the traditional knowledge. We have to couple the traditional knowledge as well as the situation where you are there and make a decision. That is the proper environmental management system. That paper also we will introduce environment management in our MSc curriculum. How to manage it? Simply telling this will produce that one, that will produce this one, we cannot use it. Nobody is ready to forego the scientific advancement what we are having today. If anybody is telling cell phone is don't use cell phone, it will affect your air. Nobody is ready to accept your view. It is fact, but we are not ready to forego that facilities. So foregoing the facility, without foregoing the facilities, without affecting the common temperament of the public, we have to conserve that. For that, what we will do, we will first observe the situations. Second, using the situations, you try to predict. If another 10 years, it will go like this. Another 5 years, it will go like this. Then you can forecast it. It will go like this. You have to be ready to face this disaster. That's what it has happened in so many times in India. In that I read one article recently that in the whole epidemic of this pandemic epidemic is happened in India because it is not they are not properly consulted the epidemiologist. They consulted only the ICMR institute. ICMR is a research organization. Epidemiologists, they know the disease pattern, how it is spread, how we will control it. Yeah. But the posting is there in all districts. One epidemiologist is there, he is a MBBS person or MD in community medicine and give. Nobody is consulted the epidemiologist how to control this pandemic. That is the problem. They are asking somebody else. It is a ICMR, it is a research organization. They will give some topics. So we are submitting some proposals. They will analyze and they will sanction the money. That is their this. No epidemiologist involved in whole of India to control this pandemic. If you are seeing UK report, every day, every week it will come. UK report every week, UK health report every day it will come to my mail ID. That they will, this area, this type of disease is raised, this area, this type of epidemic is raised, and the government is taking this type of steps. That it is not happened. Once it is coming in the surface and it is out of our control, then we are thinking that we have to do all these things and telling so many things, it is not working. Just like astrology, how he is telling this girl and boy is having this type of charts, they are a good couple like that. Like this, all of you, all our environment science students to first observe the local environment, anything. Then you can try to analyze it. Then you predict what will happen. If this is happened, what will happen? If I am not attending the class, what will happen? You are foregoing the mark, internal assessment. That is, if you don't want the internal assessment, don't attend the internal assessment test. Like this, it is going on and forecasting. What is the forecast? If you are forecasting the internal assessment to 25 marks, you lost. Out of 75 marks, you have to secure your pass mark. Like this, you have to think, all of you have to think and work, especially for the students, I am telling, work to improve the environment. Otherwise, it will not stopping anything already in the society. I know very well the fastest technology reached to the common people is the cell phone. That is the fastest technology. Radio, other things, TV, it will come first to the metro cities, then slowly to the cities, then the town, then it will reach to the village. But cell phone reached from the top person to the bottom who is doing agriculture work in the field. Like this, our technology should, we have to develop technology to conserve the environment without compromising the existing facilities, because nobody will believe that you don't do like this, that they will don't use vehicle, you use bicycle only. It will not work. So we have to think in that way, like an astrologer, and predict and forecast. That is my opinion. It is my personal opinion, not that everybody should accept my opinion like that. And the other thing is, this is for final year MSc Environment Science student. I requested our registrar and Pro Chancellor, Vice Chancellor, they are ready to reserve a MSc seat in our MSc Environment Science in our Faculty of Life Science. You can reserve a seat using paying 5,000 rupees. Online application is available for that. This is one more announcement I want to make for the BSc students. For MSc students, in the other day I presented, Ravi Shah only presented in the day, we have 166 fellowships. Final year MSc students, those who are submitting that dissertation work, I am announcing for that, for them only. 166 fellowship, but we are receiving application less than that, for which you have to reach 35 marks to receive the one fellowship. 10,000 rupees per month. I also advise the final year MSc students, as soon as possible, you submit the dissertation, you immediately consult with your supervisor or guide or advisor. You publish a paper. If you publish a paper, you can get 10 marks. Attend to this type of one seminar or something like that, one certificate is there, 5 marks. Like that, you can reach 35 marks. We will give 10,000 rupees for you. This is another advice I am telling to the students. For faculty, that ICMR is called some around 30 to 40 application for research projects. You look in it, but most of them are clinical based or epidemiology based, epidemiologist based. Some social related items are there, also there, that you can check, and if possible, you can apply for that. Consult with our HOD, or if necessary, you can consult with me and you can apply for that also. With these few words, I thank Lingaraj, Dr. Swaraj, and Dr. Ravisha for inviting me for this meeting. Thank you, one and all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your message, wonderful message. So definitely, if you adapt traditional knowledge or local knowledge with the scientific touch, definitely it is going to help the societal problems up to a certain extent. And so we have to make a commitment and we have to take a pledge that the Environmental Day, June 5, is not only should not be restricted to only on that particular day, and we have to make sure that so in every day, in every day, we need to adapt eco-friendly activities so that it is going to help to improve the environmental quality to a greater extent. Thank you very much, sir. And now I would request Dr. Ravisha K, Head and Professor, Faculty of Life Science, to say a few words on this occasion. Over to you,
Can
sir.
I unmute?
Elrigu namaskara. A very good morning to all of you. Respected Dean and Director of Research, Dr. Balasubramaniam, my fellow faculties, Dr. Shivraj, Dr. Lingraj, and the other colleagues of the departments, invited speakers, Dr. Anusha, Srinivasan, and the other speakers, invitees, ladies and gentlemen. My pranams to the holy feet of His Holiness Jagadguru Sri Sri Rajendra Mahaswamiji, and I also invoke the blessings of His Holiness Jagadguru Sri 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 Deshikavendra Mahaswamiji, who is the Chancellor of our university. Friends, as you all know, I'll spend just 1 minute on the history of this Environment Day, when it was started and what is the motto behind it. As you all know, World Environment Day was established by the United Nations General Assembly on the first day of the Stockholm Conference on Human Environment, which was held as early as June 5th and 6th, 1972 at Stockholm in Sweden. The first Environmental Day was celebrated in 1974 with the theme, Only One Earth. Since then, World Environment Day is celebrated annually on the 5th of June, and various awareness activities for protection of environment are carried out throughout the globe. Now, it was in 1987 that it was decided to host the Environment Day activities by selecting a host country for the Environment Day activities celebration. World Environment Day 2020 was hosted by Colombia in partnership with Germany. The theme of this World Environment Day 2020 was the time for nature. Whereas today, the World Environment Day 2021 is being celebrated across the globe, and the activities, the iconic activities, are hosted by Pakistan. The theme of this World Environment Day is ecosystem restoration. Friends, as you all know, ecosystem restoration denotes assisting in the recovery of ecosystems, that have been degraded by activities like pollution and deforestation. Now, when I say ecosystem restoration, it can also mean promoted, can also be promoted by conserving the ecosystem that are already still intact. So one is recovery of ecosystems. The other one is conserving the already intact ecosystems. Thus, as we all know, a healthy ecosystem and rich biodiversity yield greater benefits such as more fertile soils, higher yields of fish, timber, and many other forest economic products, so on and so forth, which will be a very good sustainable activity. Ecosystem restoration can happen by actively planting trees or by removing pressures on the ecosystem by protecting environment and reducing the increasing level of pollution. If I may go back to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which is referred to as IPCC, which is an United Nations body for assessing the science related to climate change, the IPCC 2019 Climate Change and Land Report states that 75% of the land on this planet and 66% of the oceans have been severely altered by humans. It is estimated that approximately 1 million animal and plant species are threatened with extinction due to large part of loss in their natural habitat. As you know, habitat restriction is one of the main causes for the loss of species. We should take necessary steps to safeguard the natural habitats and help restore ecosystems to be whole and functional. We can only achieve this ecological balance when the native species that have gone extinct are restored back. Now it is time to help nature heal by rewarding. Now it is time to help nature heal by rewinding the earth, by healing the nature and ecosystem, life supporting functions that they provide, and thus get clean air, unpolluted water, healthy soils, so on and so forth, for the benefit of the mankind. At this point of time, I would like to draw attention of all my faculty and the students. One thing, that is, if at all we can think of restoring an ecosystem, we should look for technologies outside the basic environmental science area. For example, as one e-governance system or paperless governance system, if it is introduced throughout the world, I'm sure you can imagine the pressure that is reduced on the forest for the paper industry, or thereby the deforestation activities. So I feel whether it is energy sector or whether it is regular life of the basic fuel, so on and so forth, if we can look for some very clear alternative strategies that will reduce the pressure on the forest, on the ecosystem per se, by adopting technologies, I'm sure we'll be in a position to restore a lot of our ecosystem. As you know, we have been talking of banning of plastic for almost a decade now, or more than a decades. But we have not been successful in banning plastic completely because we are yet to find a very good alternative for it, which is acceptable by the society and which can replace it. That is the major problem. So if we can get a technology wherein it can be replaced with acceptability of the society, then only we will be in a position to restore the ecosystem, because we can reduce the pressure on the ecosystem per se. Friends, I'm sure the young budding scientists of environmental sciences will look for such technologies, whether it is artificial intelligence or machine learning activities or various other systems that are evolving now, be it from the area of computer science or from the chemical sciences or biological sciences. If we can integrate technologies to see that some of these technologies are brought to the acceptability of the society so that these things could be conveniently replaced and the pressure on the ecosystem could be reduced. With these few words, I thank the organizers for providing me this opportunity to share my thoughts on this platform. And I would also hope, I thank all the speakers who have accepted our invitation to be part of this. Dr. Anusha and Dr. Srinivas is already here, and they have been working on the ecosystem restoration activities, both at the government level or at the NGO levels. And they have been contributing. I'm sure they'll be the resource persons will be sharing their experiences and also the problems faced by them in due course. If the young minds can look for alternate technologies, I'm sure we will be successful in bringing down the pressure on the ecosystem per se, thereby either conserving the ecosystem or restoring the ecosystem to the extent possible. Thank you, one and all. I thank the authorities of JSS AHER, our Pro-Chancellor, Vice-Chancellor, and Registrar, and the Dean, who is himself a very good environmental science fellow in this, for having helped us to conduct this webinar. And I hope the discussions and deliberations during this webinar will go a long way in igniting our young minds of environmental science students and other students to see that they contribute significantly to the societal need. Thank you, one and all. Namaste.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your good message. Really, it is a wonderful message. And you have neatly reviewed the history of Environmental Day celebration. And definitely the thought you have mentioned and explained about the IUCN status of this species and the major threats to the biodiversity loss, it is a significant one. So at this point of time, I think all the participants are going to take the knowledge and imbibe, and they adapt in every day of their life. And definitely if one promotes and adapts eco-friendly technology or activity, so definitely we can reduce the carbon footprint greatly, so in every day in their life, so without depending on the community or without depending on the government support. So thank you, sir. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Now I request the first speaker of the day, Anusha P. A few words about her. She received her graduation from University of Agricultural Science, Dharwad. She worked as a forest range officer trainee, assistant conservation of forest trainee. Currently, she is working as assistant conservator of forest in Mysuru Forest Division. So with this background, now I request her to present the topic ecosystem restoration and ecosystem services. It's over to you, madam.
Good morning, everyone. Respected Dean, sir, and faculty of JSS institutions. My special thanks to Rindraja sir for giving me this opportunity to interact in this session. Okay, today I'm going to talk few words about ecosystem restoration and ecological services from the forest. Okay, sir, can you please display the PPT? Sorry. Okay.
You can go to the presentation mode. Indraj,
Yes, sir. Next slide, sir, please.
full slide show. Yeah.
Okay. As now Ravisha sir has briefly explained us about the history of the World Environment Day. So as we know, it started from 5th June of 1974. The first theme was only Earth, only one Earth, and from this year, that is 2021 to 30, this whole decade is considered is taking up a new challenge, that is ecosystem restoration. And this ecosystem restoration is achieved mainly through the growing trees, greening cities, rewilding gardens, changing diets, or cleaning up rivers and coasts. So we have a big task in our hands in forthcoming decade. Next, please. So let us see a quick introduction of the ecosystem restoration. Ecosystem restoration is nothing but restoring the flora and fauna and the dependent environment uh, which is degraded or destroyed in previous days or years or decades, whatever it may be. So it's mainly involved in the restoration of the flora and fauna over the area. And this ecosystem restoration is mainly achieved through the conserving the particular ecosystem by knowing the what are the key living organisms and non-living environment in which the living organism can thrive well. So this is what ecosystem restoration is called. Next. Next. And previously, why we need ecosystem restoration? As we know, whatever benefits we draw from the nature, it will be a limited one only. So we have to use these benefits judiciously. So apart from that, for leading a normal life, we need everything in each and every part of our lifestyle should be in a optimum level. So for this, a healthier ecosystem with richer biodiversity yield greater benefits, such as more fertile soils, bigger yields of timber and fish, and large stores of greenhouse gases. So if everything is in optimum level, then only each and every benefits will be drawn. If one of the benefit, if one of the system is overtaking the other, the whole system will be collapsed. So it is very important that each and everything which is in our surroundings should be maintained in the optimum level only. Next. How we can achieve the ecosystem restoration? Uh, just as of my knowledge, I displayed 4 points how we can achieve the ecosystem restoration. First one is identifying the reasons for the destruction. So first and foremost thing is why we are losing some species, or why we are losing our environment in some reasons. So first we have to identify the reasons why these changes are happening. Then comes the study about the interdependency. So how the organisms or living things are dependent on the environment, that is non-living things, for their survival. So we have to thoroughly study about the interdependency of the living organism with the non-living things. And next comes the native species. Apart from the destruction of the non-living things, some living things only, they will compete with the native species. Then they will replace those native species and they will acquire the space in which the native species are acting. That is, they are taking the niche of the native species and they will become the dominant. So it is very important to see that what is the niche of the native species, and if any other species is overtaking that and all. Next comes the ways to reintroduction of the species which are destructed. So this is the final and most important step in which we have to keenly observe the how they can be reintroduced and what steps can be taken. Next. Okay. Before going to the how we can restore and all, it is prevention is better than cure, as we know. Before destruction happens, then only we can take so many steps so that we can halt the destruction. So first comes the restriction on the exploitation of the forest resources. So we when we over exploit this benefits, obviously in future days it will be it may become vanished. So we have to take care that the things which are using should be in the proper manner. Like in wildlife, we see if we overhunt the carnivores, this will lead into the increase in the herbivore population. So when herbivore population increases, there will be a shortage of edible plants. So whole system will be collapsed. Excuse me. Next comes the controlling and preventing of invasive species. As I said earlier, there may be a exotic species which will take the overtake the native species and all. So we should take care that this will not happen. And for example, if a non-native species will come, it may not be a disease tolerant, or it may be prone to the disease, or it may not adjust to the present climatic situation of that place. It may be vanished and the land may become barren. So the native species will be grown there. They will be well accommodated to the particular area. They may be thrive well in that area. So if we replace the native species with the exotic, it may be a very harmful one for in future. Next comes the reducing pollution. As we know, as pollution increases, it will have affect the ecosystem in various ways. Like if we, due to the acid rains that is mainly caused by the coal burning, it will weaken and destroy some tree species, especially the trees which are in the high altitudes. Due to these acid rains, we may lose the high altitude tree species. So it will affect the high altitude tree species, and restoring those things will be very difficult in the future. Next comes the controlling development. So as we know, as the population increases, the cities will grow in like in pick of 1 year or two. We may see big cities which are expanding like anything. So as this happens, it may also take away the eco-sensitive areas of the wildlife. So when these cities expands, it will take up the periphery lands. So fragmentation of the habitat will happen for the wildlife, and they cannot thrive beyond the cities and all. So it will be the mm, the species may be restricted to small areas, and there may be inbreeding depression and all. And in future, it will affect the population of the particular species, and we may face the extinction of those species. And like as we know, elephants are wild ranging animals. uh, these animals need a wide range to for their survival. They will travel tons of miles in their lifespan. When these habitat of these elephants is hurdled, they can't complete their mm, tasks, which are in which they will travel a huge amount of area in summers in search of water and food. It This will not happen, and the habitat will be restricted. And as we know, they can't find food and water for their survival. Next, next, sir. Next slide, sir. Okay. As we come to the forest, we have ecological services like biodiversity conservation. As we know, forest is, as a whole forest we can take as an ecosystem. As a single tree we can take as an ecosystem. Even if you see the single tree as ecosystem, there are more number of species which are dependent on particular tree, like insects, birds, even small microorganisms which we can't see also. So these forests will help in conservation of the biodiversity. Next comes the climate regulation. As we know, there is a burning topic called climate change and global warming. See, as this the only what the only way to tackle these issues is growing forest. So even we can feel a difference in the park of a particular city and the roads of the particular city. These parks will create a microclimate where the temperature will be 2 degrees lesser than the roads and non-forest areas which don't have any vegetation. So forest plays a major role in the climate regulation. Next. Next comes the soil conservation and prevention of land degradation and desertification. See, here what happens, even a desert is also a ecosystem, but what will happen if all the shrub forest and other deciduous forest will slowly converted into deserts? There will not be any scope for those species which are dependent on the ecosystems like scrub ecosystem and rainforest and all. So these forests plays a major role in the controlling the desertification. And next comes the soil conservation. As we know, tree holds a huge amount of water and they will slowly release the water. So uh, due to by forest, we also have a advantage like soil conservation and preventing of land degradation. Next comes the water regulation and conservation. As I told earlier, the forest will hold a huge amount of water. It will slowly release the water. So forests are very important in the watershed, and they will filter out the water pollutions also, and they will recharge the aquifers, and they will absorb the floodings. Most of the floodings which we are facing today are mainly due to the destruction for the from destructions which we have done to forest. Next. Next comes the recreation. In this lockdown time, we would have experienced how it is difficult to sit in a room and making our daily life. So as we know, if we go out for a visit to the forest, our most of the mental illness will be clear. So obviously it will be very great to go out and see a very good out there. So it will also serve the recreational purposes. And next is a disaster risk reduction. So this is the common thing, landslides and all. This is again mainly due to the deforestation and all. If we stabilize the hilly areas through planting some grass species and shrub species over there, we can greatly reduce the risk of the landslides and all. This is also one of the benefit from the forest. Next. Okay, all of these slides I have only spoken about the conservation, conservation, conservation. So, do we really need only conservation? Then what about the development? So, it should be both ways. We are conserving nature so that we will get some benefits out of it. So, apart from the conservation, we also have so many schemes in our department, like we have VFCs like village forest committees, in which villagers and our forest department will work together. They will raise plantations and all. They will extract those trees and they will share the benefits. And in um, after that, these tree species will be sent to the forest-based industries like matchstick industries, plywood industries, etc. So, by these schemes, we can have both conservation and also development of our system. So, it is very important that these conservation and development should be in the sustainable manner. So, it is the um, main what people are the main aspects. So they need to encourage us for the growing forest, and they need to help us in growing forest, so that we can have both development and conservation done. So apart from this, we also have some awareness programs and other schemes like MMSC, Maguvin Gondumara, Shale Gonduvana. In this, we will have a small patch of plantation over school premises, and then KVPY, Krishi Aranya Protsaha Yojane, in which we will give incentives to the farmers if they grow forestry species in their land. See, agroforestry is a very economical concept where farmers will get a good amount of benefits through the forestry species. In hand, they can also grow agriculture species with the forestry one. So it will improve the tree cover, and also they will get benefits after some years. So we will give 125 rupees per seedling for 3 years, like 35 rupees for first year, 40 rupees for second year, and 50 rupees for third year. So we have so many schemes in this regard. So I request everyone to cooperate with us and for conserving our wildlife and also forests. So thank you. Next slide. So this is all about from my side, sir. Any questions or anything is there?
Thank you, madam. Thank you for your good message. Really, you explained the a very good concept of ecological services to the participants. And also you have highlighted the importance of the sustainable development, which is very important at this point of time. So development without affecting the environment. So definitely, I think last year I spoke to Deputy Conservator of Forest of Mysuru division, and so later we have stuck with the lockdown. And definitely, if time permits, our students are ready to take up and associate with the forest department, especially for creating awareness in the form of rallies and seed ball program and Vana Mahotsav program and afforestation program. So definitely we are happy to associate with the forest department. If time permits, definitely we would like to associate, and we would like to serve the society directly or indirectly. Thank you, madam. I know that you are so busy being a administrative position in this difficult time. You have accepted our invitation, and you have given valuable time for us. I really thank you from my side and also from the department. So I would like to request the participants, if you have any questions that needs to be raised, and if you have any clarification from ma'am related to any activities from the forest department, so one or two questions can be asked. And before moving to the next speaker, next session.
Okay, sir. Amarakshar is also my batchmate. Actually, we did training.
Yeah, madam. He is also with us. He
From
will be joining in the fourth session.
fourth session.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
madam.
He is also a right person to clarify all your doubts, sir. Actually,
Yeah, thank you, madam. Thank you.
if any doubts is there, you people can ask him also.
Definitely, madam.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your time, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Hello.
Sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm trying to do the my
So
presentation thing.
we have a speaker, next speaker. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, yes, yes,
Yeah.
I can.
We have a next speaker, K. Srinivasan, project coordinator, Western Ghats. You obtained his BSc in biochemistry in 2006 and master's in biomedical sciences from Vellore Institute of Technology in 2008. After working at the Center for Ecological Sciences in the Indian Institute of Science for many years, he joined the Western Ghats program to work on ecological restoration of degraded rainforest in the Annamalai Hills, Western Ghats. Here, he coordinates activities related to restoration, long-term monitoring of forest dynamic plots, and trophical tree phenology monitoring. So with this background, I request K. Srinivasan to present the topic, sir.
Thank you so much, and inviting for me for today, Environmental Day. I would like also thank other faculty members in the institution. So, sir, I mean, I'm trying to do the presentation mode. I couldn't uh, do that.
Sir, are you using laptop? You just follow the procedure what you usually do.
Yes, yes, I have done that, but it is still in the normal mode. It's not
Yeah.
going to the slideshow.
Okay, please go to slideshow and start slideshow. Yes.
Yes, yes, I did, but it's not changing.
No, go to slideshow and start slideshow.
Yes,
Yes.
but the slideshow is it's all disabled. I can't see any.
And please close that right window, sir. This one.
It just freezed actually. Yeah. Can you see now?
Yes.
Is it in present slideshow mode?
It is in a regular. It is not at slideshow mode. No issues, sir. You go ahead. It is clearly visible, actually.
Okay, okay. 1 second.
Sir, continue, sir. No problem.
Okay, yeah.
It's fine.
So yes. So already uh, the Anusha has explained about the ecosystem restoration and the ecosystem service very briefly. So here I'm going to talk about on ecological restoration of degraded rainforest in Anamala Hills, Western Ghats. There are different kinds of ecosystem can be restored, like forest, ocean, farmland, wetland, grasslands, and etc. But today, my talk will be mostly focused on forest, particularly on tropical rainforest. Um, so we know the tropical rainforest is highly diverse and diverse terrestrial ecosystem, and it comprising at least 40,000 to 50,000 tree species uh, globally. And recently, but last uh, few decades, the tropical forest also suffering from substantial loss of forest, uh, forest, and it also converting into the forest fragmentation and other things. Um, our major drivers for this conversion is like logging, agriculture, mining, and infrastructure. There have been studies shows that nearly 2.3 million square kilometer of forest we lost from 2000 to 2012. Here, the the major two concern that during the um, forest loss. One is a loss of biological diversity. The other one is a carbon emission and loss of carbon storage. There are again there are some studies have shown that nearly 250 gigaton of carbon are stored in tropical forest vegetation, which strongly influences the global carbon cycle, plays a crucial role in regulating the concentration of greenhouse gases in atmosphere. Um, with this, there are two significant effects of changes in the forest fragments.
Sir,
The
excuse
study
me.
shows that,
I think slides are not moving.
oh, oh, 1 second.
Just check it, sir. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry for that.
Yeah, no problem.
So I'm right now in this one.
Yeah.
Um, there are two significant effects of changes in the forest fragments. The studies have shown from earlier the uh, fragmentation can alter the forest stand structure where it decrease in the larger trees, whether the study shows from the Amazon forest. And also there's other study shows that from Kodagu, from Western Ghats, uh, there is a decrease in other size classes also. With this, it leads to the some losses in the decrease in the biological diversity. Also, fragmentation altered the community structure where it increased in the pioneer and invasive species. Um, Here, the pioneer is a species where when you disturb the forest, there's a first emerging species we always call pioneer, which is a softwood and fast-growing tree, where the invasive species are like, for example, lantana, chromelina, vedalia. These are the invasive species where when you open up the forest, when the forest cover is open up, uh, the alien species take over the forest fragments and it invade everywhere into the forest. Also, it leads to decrease in the old growth forest species where usually we call it's a old growth in the sense it's the mature forest trees. Um, and you see, there's a conceptual diagram where you see this thin line coming down, which is when there is a changes in the forest cover in the landscape over that time, and you lose lots of tree covers and even the other biological diversity. And so there the restoration could potentially help to bring back the forest cover. So with this, according to the Society for Ecological Restoration, they've given uh, a definition for the ecological restoration is defined as a process of assisting the recovery of the ecosystem that has been degraded, damaged, or destroyed. So, with this, Western Ghats, it's a hotspot, biological diversity. It's our study area. We know that very few rainforest patches found in India, like Western Ghats, Northeast, and Andaman Nicobar Island. But our work mostly focus on Western Ghats, particularly in Annamalai Tiger Reserve, which is in south of Nilgiris. So you see this is Annamalai Hills, which is around 1,000 square kilometer of area. The dark green, I think you see my cursor, right? Can you see my cursor that I'm moving?
Yes, sir.
Hello. Huh. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So this is the Anamalai Tiger Reserve, which is 1,000 square kilometer. And this part, the lighter part of green, you see it's a Valparaiso Plateau, which is around 220 square kilometer. And the green part is a rainforest fragments. Um, so you see this plateau, which is highly fragmented by historically exploited by mature forest. The plateau is also mostly dominated by tea, coffee, and cardamom plantation. There are 40 plus rainforest fragments like this. The green patches you see, right? That's a rainforest fragments, which the fragments has the size of the fragments varies from point sorry 0.5 hectare to 300 hectare, and so each fragments have so the size of the fragments is not a matter. The quality of the fragments is a matter here. So these fragments are mostly belongs to private landowners, and we have a MOU with the private landowners, and we do our restoration activity there. Also, if you look at these Anamalai Hills, it has uh, um, the range of forest. So it starts from low elevation rainforest, mid elevation rainforest. There's a transitional rainforest and shola grassland. So our work is mostly focused on mid elevation rainforest, and few work we have done in the shola and grasslands where we removed wattle and other invasive weeds from there. um, Not um, too much of work we are done, very few done. And yeah, so if you look at this picture, you see the Valparai view. So on your right side, on your left side is a contiguous rainforest where it's undisturbed rainforest, whereas on your right side, what you see is a fragment. It's a disconnected from the actual the contiguous forest, and in between you see the tea and some of the labor lines, residential lines, and swamps. These are the Valparai looks like, and sorry, yeah. And also, as I said, Valparai, apart from the tree diversity, even the Anamalai Tiger Reserve has a various fauna diversity, like for example, butterflies, ants, cicada, and there are moths, snails, and some of the mammals like elephant, tiger, leopard, and and also there's a lot of endemic and endangered species you see in this landscape, like endangered hornbill, great hornbill. There's a gray hornbill. So many various taxas you can see in this landscape. And so, as I said, the Valparai Plateau is mostly as a forest fragments, and each fragments are scattered widely within the landscape, and it's completely disconnected. So, all these fragments historically, as I said, it's highly degraded. So we want to restore. Why? To improve the biodiversity into this fragment, and also the restoration will could help refuges for the wildlife. Also, it's connect the forest patches. Also, it conserve the outside protected area. So how to go for how to start restoration. So before you start any restoration, any planting in a degraded site, you need to understand how the understand the particular patch, uh, their plant community, and their how much they have degraded. So much you need to little more spend some time to assess that plot. For example, you see, we do assess before we plant what are the plant species you find there, and based on that you need to select the trees to plant into this particular degraded sites. So before you plant the tree, you need to do some sort of preparation, like if the plot is more degraded, there'll be obviously there'll be lots of invasive species will be invaded, like lantana, as I said, lantana, chimera, chromalina, all these species. So you need to remove all these weeds and go for the planting. So before you so once you decide that you need to plant in this site, uh, but you need a actually you need a rainforest species, and to for that we have a rainforest nursery. So we what we do, we collect seeds from across the plateau, and mostly our seed collection will be on the roadsides on the or in the forest trail, because uh, the seeds which we find on the roads and the trails are most likely to be damaged by a vehicle or other thing, and there'll be a very less likely to survive. So those seeds we will collect from the trails and the roadsides, and we bring it to the our nursery, and we do seed processing. And there are very experienced people to do this processing. We have a local community, the indigenous people who are very good knowledge on the seeds and forest. They handle very carefully, and they we sow into the respective bags, and and then we continuously monitoring those seeds, and water them and maintain them. And so there are different stages of to maintain. It's a big activity. Actually, the nursery is a very big activity where you 24 in where 365 days there should be some people to monitor and process the activity. And you see this picture, it's ready to plant into the site. Also, while we are doing all this preparation in the nursery, we strictly don't use any chemicals in the nursery. We do want to see the natural germination and their success, because ultimately these plants will go back to the forest. In case if we use any chemical treatment, that will also affect while it goes to the into the actual into the natural ecosystem. So we absolutely avoid any chemical treatment. We want to see the natural regeneration without any artificial stimulating. And yeah, this is our first restoration site. You see, it's a completely open patch. In 2002, one of the estate, it's called Hindustan Unilever, they came forward after a long dialogue. It took really for us to nearly 2 years to convince a company to come forward to give this land for restoration. So we got very small patch of open site, and you see this. This is actually continuous forest patch, but it's earlier historically it was degraded, and you see some of the how temple here. So once we got this patch, and we started restoring in that, and we monitor, and you see as the year goes how these patches becoming. So currently it looks like this. So this entire patch was completely degraded, and we restored. So like that, there is another site is given the same company, which was like very open like this. You see lots of lantana and pioneer species and chromalina. So these are the conditions when you degrade the forest, when you open the forest, all these invasive species will take over, and it completely suppress the any native species to come up. So before you start planting there, as I said, you need to clear all these species, invasive species. So then we planted, and you see the changes in and now you this is the present conditions. And this is another sites which it is completely open, and so much of what do you call lantana, and we removed and we planted. And you see so this is how the present condition looks like. Yes. So also so after we planted in almost 15 years back, we went into this restored site to look at as restoration helped in the recovered. So we compared. You see, there's a three boxes. One is a unrestored, one is a restored where we planted, and this is a benchmark. It's our reference site where it's a completely undisturbed patch. So we compared our restoration site with unrestored site, where restored site as weed removal and planting were carried out, whereas unrestored site, which is adjoining to the restored site, have not done any activities like weed removal or planting, but we have looked at only the natural regeneration. Beside this, we want to see how they match up with the relative undisturbed site. What I said, it's a benchmark. So we selected the benchmark location within the Annamalai Tiger Reserve, where undisturbed forest for the comparison. Therefore, we used as a reference ecosystem. Here, we did a 20 by 20 plot within this restored, unrestored, and benchmark sites. Here, we measured um, height, girth more than 3 cm dBH, and we identify and counted the trees species within this plot. And you see, we looked at these are the different. We looked at these attributes, and it appears to show that all these attribute, like for example, this is a unrestored, the orange one, and the light greener is restored, and the benchmark is a green color. So ultimately, our goal is to reach this benchmark level, because this is our reference site. It appears to shows that all these attributes are higher. All these attributes are higher than the higher in the restored site than compared to unrestored site. So you see this picture clearly shows that actually restoration could help to improve the quality of the forest patches, but it's not up to the benchmark, which is our reference site, where it's a undisturbed site. But it is very difficult to reach there. That's why we always tell that whatever the remaining patch of undisturbed forest patches, we need to protect very, very carefully, very highly. Um, Take home message: protecting the existing ecosystem. Ecological restoration could potentially reverse the loss of habitat. Also, it improves the biological diversity. Involve the local communities for your during um, your project. Plant high diverse native plant species. Avoid monoculture. So usually, all this reforestation program, mostly they use very few species, which is not help to bring back any biodiversity. So try to avoid very less species or monoculture and go for high native plant species. And as I said, recovery will take really several decades through better protection. And apart from this, we also does lots of other research activities on the long term. One is our tropical phenology, tree phenology, which we monitor our the life cycle of the plants, where we observe their fruiting patterns and flowering patterns. And also we also do a long-term research on forest dynamics, which also studies on how the forest changes over the time period. Apart from this, we also have a nature education program in our college. We conduct lots of nature education to the local students, childrens, and we have a nature information center where we bring them to our information center, and we have lots of collections from across the plateau about the wildlife and plant species, and also there are lots of interaction sessions, videos, and other stuff to involve students into the environmental. I would like also, as I said, the long term, the research on tree phenology. NCF also does Season Watch India, where it is a citizen science program. Any people can involve in this. It is basically what you do is people who are very interested on plants, they can, if they have a tree around their house, on the street, anywhere, they can monitor their flowering, fruiting pattern, and you go to this Season Watch website and you can upload your data there, and it will be very useful for scientific community. So anybody can involve in this Season Watch. And also, if you would like to have want to listen more about our ecological restoration, I would like recommend your students to watch Dreams of Trees. It's a freely available documentary. You can watch in the YouTube. Um, yeah, with that, I also thanks to my partners, Tamil Nadu Forest Department, AHER Agro Industries, Tata Coffee, and also all my support funding agencies. Um, and I would like thank my team. Without my team and me, my colleague and my field staff, it wouldn't happen all this work. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
It was a wonderful presentation. Really, I think the team has done a lot of research work. So I was very happy, and I think the participants definitely learned a lot of things about the forest dynamics, and it is open for discussion. I request the participants, if they have any queries, uh, doubts as far as the presentation is concerned, please leave your questions.
I would like to take any questions if anyone wants to ask me. I'm
Yes,
ready
sir.
to answer further.
Sir, it is out of
Uh,
curiosity from my side.
yes.
Yeah, you have done your bachelor degree in biochemistry and master's in biomedical science.
Yeah.
So, what made you shift this, what you call, to this sector,
Okay.
to this field, environmental science field?
Nothing. I mean, I always interest on environment. I'm also coming from the very uh, background from the agriculture family. I also born in Vellore and very close to the Eastern Ghats. It is just below my hill or farm, and I always have interest on tree. But during that time, I don't have any uh, buddy to advise how to. Those times, it's mostly people focus on uh, engineer or doctor or other humanity science, those kind of stuff. Um, but after my master, I was gone to IIC to do some project there. But I got into this department called Center for Ecological Science, and there I saw lots of research on conservation and plants, animals, and other stuff. So I got interest in that thing. I completely stopped interest on mol bio, clinical biochemistry. I did all this stuff, but I'm mostly attached to my trees, and so I started working on that. So my first field work in Agumbe, I just started my field career in ecology in Agumbe. That's Agumbe is my first inspiration for ecology. So that's where I learned lots of stuff. It is a it is a long story. So
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
I
I
did.
think you are closely associated with the environment and nature. Uh,
Yes.
so let us take up one or two questions, sir. There's a
Yes.
question from Akshay V.
Yeah.
Sir, I have a question. You said a restoration involves removing invasive species like lanterna.
Hmm.
Say we are restoring for the ecosystem as per the theme. Would not
Mm.
make lanterna an endangered species or a rare species if you remove them for a decade.
No, so obviously it's not Indian species. It's come from South America. It's a non native to India. So obviously it's also there are in all countries fighting to remove the lantana, and even the government is given fund to remove the lantana. So obviously it won't go extinct because it's not belongs to India. It has come from abroad as a garden plant. During colonial period, it has come to as a garden plant, and from garden it escaped, and it now it's like a kind of a Prosopis julifera.
Sir, what are the barriers? Why is it very difficult to remove it? I think it is a
Um,
very big issue and serious issue as far as the conservation of the native species is concerned.
So what we observed in our sites, so lantana need a more open. in open area it comes very rigorously. But so as we removed this lantana and we planted our native species, once this shade forms, and naturally it disappears. So in the shade, it won't come at all. So most of our sites, which we saw, lots of lantana invasion after we restored, and it completely disappeared from the that plot. But some of the restored plots on the edges, there is a lantana, but it takes time to you need to continuous removal of weeds, uprooting the land. So basically, you need to uproot the lantana. It not if you cut and chop, leave the bottom root thing, it will come up. So you need to uproot, but not in uh, one round of uproot. You will disappear. It will take multiple time of removal to eradicate the lantana.
So another question,
Yeah.
what are the major problems you come across while forest restoration process?
Yeah, good questions. There are various issues. It's not that easy, and also it's a very challenging uh, task project, because we work uh, in the private land, and as I said, it took us for really 2 year, more than 2 year of a long dialogue um, with the companies, and one company came forward to give a restoration land to prove the restoration could help recover the degraded patch. So there are different stakeholders involved in this program. Like first is a forest department. The second is a land owners, the companies. Then the local communities. Then there are tribal people, and various other people are involved in this this project. And we need to talk to them, because some places we created forest patches, and you see lots of animal comebacks there, and people also will get angry on us that, oh, you created forest and the animals are come back. Earlier there was no animal at all here. Actually, in this landscape, always there was a wildlife, but earlier there was no much media explored in this landscape. The people want to, they don't come to know the presence of wildlife. But now, the as other said, the mobile is everywhere. Mobile network is everywhere, and people have very intensive communications, and there's a easily share their animal movement to the people. So we need to explain them why these forest fragments are important, how it could help. But scientifically, it's not. Uh, if you tell them whatever we do scientifically, they don't understand. But you have to tell them why the forest patches are important. If you improve the quality of the forest, and also it helps to improve the quality of your watershed, because most of our lots of the residential, the tea workers line labor lines will be very close to the forest fragments, and the waters all come from in the forest fragments only. So if that quality of that fragment is go down, obviously you will also lose the water uh, availability also. And the other challenges that after we plant, so also these fragments are very widely distributed, and each and every sites are very unique, very their conditions are very unique. And you um, to monitor them, and to select the species within the landscape, within the forest fragments, are the quite challenging, because we need to refer lots of flora. And also, I mean, I am very lucky to be here, because my seniors are here, my colleagues are here. They've been here for more than 2 decades, and they know the landscape very well, and they know their species diversity, the plant community diversity, they know very well. And it's very easy for us to allot the species to the different sites. And yeah, maintenance. So you need to regularly maintain these plots. So it's not that once you go plant and come back. You need to regularly monitor those plants, how they are growing up and how they are coming up in the during summer. You need to do some mulching, or if you need any caldering, removal of weeds around the plants, or general um, site. So lots of things you need to do. And other challenging, very quite challenging one is people get into these fragments where we planted and go and chop the trees. We have seen many trees that we lost, which we have planted, like good size of plants, like around 10 cm dbh, gbh. So which is pole size tree. They remove for various purpose. One for their roofing, or they for during this festival time they will put it for what you call this pandal type of thing, that shamana, all those stuff. So for decoration work they'll use this pole. So our fragments has lots of pressure in cutting removal of trees from local communities. So we need to engage constantly, regularly with them, talking to them. Whenever we have time, whenever we go to that fragment, if I see people there plucking tea, and we need to go and talk to them and convince, because these people also keep changing, because there are lots of migratory has come from northeast, because more earlier there are lots of south of Tamil Nadu people were worked here, but now they are moving down, and lots of even the tea companies have issues with the labor, so they are getting labors from the um, northeast, and they might have some pressure on hunting also. So you need to keep engaged with local communities to put a pressure on the forest patches. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your wonderful presentation. I think, as far as my knowledge goes, NCF is doing a lot of research work, and you have a good team. I think you have taken a lot of research works, and forest restoration, and also I think human elephant conflict. The good
Yes, yes,
working human elephant conflict also. So
yes,
it was
yeah.
a very nice presentation. And of course, I convey all these messages and to our students, if they are really interested as far as the biodiversity conservation work, and if they are interested as far as this field is concerned, so definitely they will talk to you, and they will get in contact with you, and kindly share your experiences. And if they are ready to explore the possibility of research and all, try to help them out. And some students are really interested. So after completing the pandemic, definitely we will be in contact with you. And whenever you visit NCF Mysuru division, so kindly visit our campus also. So definitely we need your expertise to train our students in this field. So I thank you, sir. Thank you for your valuable time. On behalf of our institution, I express my sincere thanks to you, sir, and also your team.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the giving this opportunity to talk to students, and specifically, and we are happy to help any students, and anytime they can contact us. And yeah, once the pandemic is hopefully it'll get over soon, and I can visit and talk to people, talk to students. I can help for their career, surely. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah,
Thank you,
I'm
sir.
happy to
Thank you
help
very much.
people. Yeah,
Thank you, sir.
yeah, thank you. Thanks.
So we have a next speaker, Dr. Guru Raja KV.
Hello, good morning.
Sir.
Namaste. Namaste.
Namaskara, sir. Namaskara.
Namaste.
Just we are going to listen to you, sir. A brief information about Dr. KV Guru Raja. He is a faculty member and researcher at Srishti Manipal Institute of Art, Design and Technology, Bengaluru. His current research is in the fields of amphibian ecology, behavior and landscape ecology. He has so far discovered 21 new species of frogs from the Western Ghats and 2 new fish species, and described 3 novel breeding behaviors in frogs. He supports a citizen science program, that is Frog Watch India, and is instrumental in an in situ conservation program called Batracharium. He is awarded State Biodiversity Award for Excellence by Government of Karnataka in 2016 and Geospatial Excellence Award for Frog Find Android app developed in 2014. So with this brief background, I welcome Dr. KV Guru Raja to present the topic.
Thank you, Dr. Lingaraju, and thank you for the team. Hi, Srinivas. I was able to listen
Hi,
to you
hello, sir.
last 15 minutes.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much
Yes.
for laying the foundation for my talk. Good morning, everybody, on this day of World Environmental Day. Thanks for making time and listening to us. I will share my slide. Before getting into the slide, I have a confession to make. I am like that particular person who has read everything about the cow, but in the examination, they ask about coconut tree. So finally, what he did was he wrote everything about cow and then finally said, cow is tied to coconut tree. So it's the same kind of stuff I'm going to do because my entire discussion or research from past 2 decades is on amphibians. And somewhere I touched upon eco restoration, but I will try to tie both and try to present the same to you all. Okay, so let's start with the slides. I hope it's visible now. So it's titled Amphibian Diversity in Relation to Ecosystem Restoration. And the overview of my talk is to introduce you about amphibians. Then let's also figure out what are the ecosystem functioning of amphibians. And then perhaps I will touch upon 2 key things. One is the riverine ecosystems that I worked on, and the other one is on the urban lake systems. And then finally, give you case studies of what we did as eco restoration. So one of the key requirement is that don't like you can have all the questions, but you can post them either in the chat box or at the end of the talk. It would be good for me to have my flow first. Okay, I perhaps will take about 30-35 minutes to talk about the subject. Okay, so let's get directly into the amphibian diversity. We have about 8,000 odd species, 8,300 species, and they are into 3 groups: Sicilians, salamanders, and frogs and toads. They're called Gymnophiona, Chordata, and Anura. Anuras are those which don't have tail. That is, an is absence, ura is tail. They are the largest order in the amphibian world, followed by salamanders or Chordata. Chordata is amphibians, those have tail. Okay, and they resemble like lizards, but they are not lizards because they don't have scale. And if you look at the fingertips, there are only 4. There are only 4 fingers in their 4 hands. 4, not 5. And the last one is Gymnophiona, which is very less represented because of its nature. It's burrowing. It gets into subterranean areas below decaying woodlogs. So they look like earthworms, large size earthworms. But the only difference is that these Sicilians have backbone, whereas earthworm doesn't have it. Gymna means naked, Ophios means snake, even though it's a misnomer, but they are a group of amphibians. How they are distributed, you can see that almost all the continent anurans are present. except for sub-Saharan Africa and the Arctic region. Recently, they also found a fossil from the Antarctic region. Whereas salamanders are more temperate in region. India has 2 species. We'll discuss about that later. And then Sicilians are more or less on the tropical region. And then coming to Indian scenario, it's being that we have about 467 species, 2 salamanders in the Darjeeling foothills, and then there are about 40 Sicilians and 425 anurans. What is interesting is that Indian scenario is an upward trend. This particular kind of graph you can only see in COVID times on how many cases being reported, but luckily we also have from diversity perspective, there are amphibians and in fact, frogs and toads being discovered in India at a rate which is about 10 to 12 species per year in the last 2 decades. So almost 40% of Indian amphibian species have been discovered in last 21 years. So when I was writing my PhD thesis way back in 2002, I was saying that India has about 220 species of amphibians total. But today we have 467. We have almost doubled the number, okay? And all these things, thanks to technology, thanks to enthusiasm with people, thanks to the kind of questions, kind of team that we are building in India, which is more open, which discusses a lot, and which tries to venture into newer areas to figure out what is happening. So if you just look at this graph, you can feel very positive about Indian scenario. We are discovering a lot of species. But when it comes to conservation or understanding the ecology of species, that's where the problem lies. Because more than 60% of Indian species, we don't know ecological status. We don't know how many of them are there, what kind of habitat they live in, what kind of ecosystem they require, when they breed, how many eggs they lay. We don't know for more than 60% of amphibians that we have discovered. So that's a great challenge. And that is perhaps one of the challenges for which I got involved in amphibian studies. And eventually everything started falling in place, started discovering species and all. So this is a glimpse of amphibians that we have in India. It's not entirety. It's just a glimpse of how colorful amphibians that we have. And they are not just only beautiful to look at, they're also very good vocalists. They make good symphony during the monsoon. So you can name anything you can associate with amphibians with colors and sound. We have them here. So I, in fact, generally start with what are amphibians, but I would like to tell you now. So amphibians are first classified by Carlos Linnaeus way back in 1758 as those loathsome creatures which are perhaps cursed by God. These are the words that he used. And he classified them as the species which has 2 life forms. One as tadpoles, which would look like this. I hope it works. Yeah, this is the tadpole stage where they live inside the water. They scrape the bottom of the portion. They scrape the algal mats. They don't have any teeth. They use the lips to scrape. And then they grow. And this tadpole need not happen only in water. It can happen direct development kind also. But there is a stage called tadpole. And then they become something like this, which are adults, right? So the same tadpole, when they develop, they will become like this. So since there are 2 stages in their life cycle, they are called amphibians. It's not because they are in water and land, they are called amphibians. That's a misnomer. It is because they have 2 stages, one as a tadpole stage and the other one as an adult stage. They are called amphibians. So this is what happens. So egg is laid in the water, tadpole emerges, tadpole then gets leg and hand, and then the tail actually moves inside. It's called retrogressive metamorphosis, and that an adult becomes. And this is the time for many of you who are in the in your neighborhood. You can also watch. Don't violate any COVID norms, but you can go out and see what kind of species you have in your backyard. Perhaps you may see some of the new species also there. Okay, so when we look back in history and try to understand when they have evolved, amphibians evolved something like 360 million years ago, which is called late Devonian period, and I try to highlight that over here. So in fact, they emerged from the sarcopterygians, which are fishes, and the fishes pedaled their front fins and the back fins, and that modified into hands and legs. And that's why first ever vertebrate got onto the land. And these are the first vertebrates. Amphibians are the first vertebrates. So just to give a comparison, they were 360 followed by 6 zeros number of years old, whereas human beings are 2 followed by 5 zeros. We are just 2 lakh years old, whereas amphibians are 360 million years old. And you can see what this 2 lakh year old species has done to 360 million old species. Perhaps amphibians might have seen a large number of changes that has happened. Dinosaurs came and went. They have seen a lot of glacial period, but they are now dwindling at a rapid rate than they would have gone on their natural extinction path. So that's why we are heading towards the 6th mass extinction. Anyway, we will not get into that soon, but we would like to also see what are the unique features of amphibians. They are ectotherms. They don't have body temperature like human beings. They depend on sun to get the temperature, to metabolize or to break down the food particles. They respire through the skin, and they don't have any protective layers around their eggs. So all these things make them ecological indicators. And if you find any frogs in your neighborhood, you should be happy that that ecosystem is healthy and functional. Whereas if you're not finding, you should be really worried. Something is happening with the amphibians. One of the example I always give in the COVID situation is that way back in 1985, when frogs were started disappearing, and that was the first time it was reported that there are fungal infections, there are viral infections in amphibians. People were laughing at us, saying that, what are you talking about? Because till that time, nothing was reported from amphibian world. But now, 30 years down the line, you can see that even human beings are being eliminated. We were giving the example because amphibians are among the top 5 superclasses of vertebrates. First is the fish, second is amphibian, third is reptile, fourth is aves, and fifth is mammal. Whatever happens to the lower vertebrate group, it is going to happen to the higher vertebrate group sooner or later. So COVID is one such example. There are viruses that are infecting amphibians. Now you can see that the viruses are infecting human beings too. So you need to figure out what is happening to the other species. Then you will be able to realize that how human beings can be saved on this earth. Otherwise, doomsday is not too far. Okay, so if you look at ecosystem services wise, which is again a very crude way to categorize animals, which I personally don't like, but this is being the practice from the last decade or so to figure out how they are helping the human beings. In terms of provisioning service, amphibians are known to provide medicines, and many of you might have seen that the chemicals that comes out of the skin of the frog has antimicrobial peptides, which can be used in ulcers. It can be used as painkillers. And have you heard about Hogben test, which is a test for pregnancy? So that was one of the oldest tests. What they do is they inject the urine of the women and put it into the stomach of fertile female Xenopus laevis. And if the female frog releases eggs, that means the women from whom the urine was taken is also pregnant. So that was called Hogben test. And that's the oldest one that is known as a provisioning service in the amphibians. Then you have painkillers that is being taken from amphibians. There are chemicals that is in the mouth of the frog like this. This is a gastric brooding frog from Australia, which is no longer existing. So how do tadpoles survive in the mouth of the female without being digested? So there are digestive acids that goes and covers the tadpoles, but nothing happens to tadpole. So what is that chemical that the tadpole releases then to avoid the acidification? So perhaps that chemical is used in curation of ulcer. So coming to Indian scenario, you have frogs which have given us a lot of chemicals. One of the key thing is urmin, which was discovered in 2017. This is from a fungoid frog, the reddish colored frog that we are seeing, and that is helpful in mitigating H1N1 viral infections. So those who are looking for medical medications or a kind of compounds that can fight with corona, perhaps there is a chance for all of us to look at amphibians more closely. It is not that I'll collect all the frogs and try to figure out the chemical. There are better techniques where you can trigger some chemical, some electric shock so that they release the chemical, and then you test it through HPLCs and all, then figure out what are the chemicals kind of. So you need not have to kill amphibians to get the medicine. There are ways to handle it and get it. So you have tigernins, there are H-lan. These are all antimicrobial peptides that's known from Indian amphibians. Then as food resource, there are number of species that is being eaten across the world. India was once an exporter of frog legs. It's called jumping chicken, but it's banned in 1984 onwards. So we are not exporting anything, but it's still a delicacy along the coastal regions like Goa and Kerala. And many of the frogs from Karnataka gets exported over there. People do eat even now, though it is illegal. And in the Northeast, you know that there are cultural practices with which they cull amphibians and they eat. So this is the example of bullfrogs. This is from the Western Ghats areas. You can see that they will be collected in such a manner, but they will be eaten also in a very horrendous manner. They will chop off and they eat only the part of legs. So regulating services, if you look at, and I am talking about all the ecosystem functions kind of. So in regulating services, we have species which can control the flies, mosquitoes kind of thing. So you have the list of species over there. I don't want to go there, but we'll focus on Indian frogs. So one of the examples you can see is so that's a common Indian toad, and you can see that it's actually eating a lot of white ants, and so white ants are nothing but termites. So you can imagine if a toad can eat as many as about 62 individuals in 1.5 minutes. You can imagine if you have more number of frogs and toads around you, how much insect they control, right? So that is one of the reasons where you definitely require amphibians as an alternative to the kind of chemicals that or the pesticides that we use in croplands. An agriculture field which uses less amount of pesticide will have more number of amphibians or frogs and toads, and he can actually lessen the amount of rupees spent on purchasing chemicals. But unfortunately, the pressure on food is so much so that every hectare or every acre of an agriculture field is asked to produce as much as possible. So we dump a lot of fertilizers, chemical fertilizers, pesticides, but eventually that leads into decline of amphibians in that region. So cultural services, frogs are being there from Egyptian Hecate god to Japanese cultural things to Aesop fables. And one of the picture that I have shown at the bottom right corner is one of the deadliest frog species in the world. And I was fortunate to have it photographed in Colombia 2019. And why it is culturally significant is that this particular species, which is called Philobatus terebrans, or terribilis, which produces a chemical which is put onto the head of the arrow, and they used to hunt. And even if you are handling and if there are cuts in your hand, this frog can kill you within 7 minutes. So culturally, people used to capture these frogs in bamboo boxes, and they used to take it from one side to other for hunting. And if you starve more, the frog's chemical used to be more concentrated. So they used to practice this, and that has become the part of the culture. And if you go to South American countries, frog is part of their culture. They worship a lot. Any person, if you talk about frog, they are ready to listen to you, right? So it is in fact very much embedded. And in India, you have from Vedic literature, where I'm not going into talking about philosophy or religious context. What I'm looking at here is how people used to observe certain things, even if you give data as before Christian era of something like 1500 BCE, right? So if you look at that, the recording says that the frogs were green, the frogs were spotted, they were croaking, they were bleating like goat, they were bellowing like cow, but they were croaking in unison kind of. So in a way, people were able to observe and record things, which we have not done in last 150 years. And that's perhaps is why we are struggling now in when we talk about ecosystem restoration, because we don't have baseline information, right? Everything, when you talk about research, it will start from looking at what is the diversity we had, what kind of things that a frog require. And when you look at Western countries, there is a kind of systematic observation that has happened. So they know in certain way what certain species require. But when it comes to India, we are still at the level of discovering species. We have not got into so detailed about the ecology of the species. Anyway, so there's another one cultural embeddedness I would like to show you. I will play this video. This is a frog marriage. This is a frog marriage that happened in Udupi, in Kalsanka. They have a female and a male frog. They married it off. I'll just forward it and perhaps show from there. Okay, I'm not going to go in detail over there, but the whole idea is that, sorry about that. The whole idea, what I was trying to show here is, again, not about the conflict between the practice and the conservation. What I'm trying to show over here is that there is a cultural embeddedness of frogs, marriages, and getting rain. What one has to look into is how you can take this forward in conservation perspective or ecosystem restoration perspective. So instead of conflicting in saying that this is not scientific, you should not be doing it, the way forward is to tell these people who are practicing it, saying that, guys, you are able to get 2 frogs this year because there is some water in the water bodies. So if you are going to pollute it, if you are going to build around it, if you are going to destroy the water body, you don't even get frogs. So when there is no rain, how are you going to get a frog? Then to get it married, and then you are going to get the rain. So it is better to conserve your water body, and then you look for your practices, cultural practices, rather than conflicting and saying your practice is wrong, this is not scientific, blah, 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 which will always keep us in a kind of fighting manner. What we have to move forward is how we can take people together. Conservation or ecosystem restoration cannot happen only by scientists. Scientists can only provide insights. It's the people who have to participate and take it forward. So this particular marriage function was a great example for me. And perhaps from last 3 years, wherever I give presentation, I mention about this because in one sense, it has a cultural embeddedness. And the other way, you can also talk about ecological restoration involving these people, because they need the water body. Because if there are water bodies, then only you will have frogs. And if you have frogs, then only you can marry them up, right? So that's a way forward I was thinking about. So then I'll also quickly talk about supporting services, what the amphibians provide. They provide both structural and functional services, because they also have 2 life stages, one as tadpole, one as adult. They work at both aquatic and terrestrial levels. So in the aquatic level, they control a lot of algae, they feed on algal mats, they change the entire composition of a particular given aquatic community. In the terrestrial way, they will change the composition of insect world. So, so that's what they do. Structurally, amphibians may not have much of the changes to the supporting service, but in terms of changing the energy from lower tropic level to higher tropic level, they do have a larger function. Okay, so I will now switch my gears and try to take you through a couple of ecosystems where I've worked in the past 2 decades. One of them is the river ecosystem. So many times when you talk about river ecosystem, these are the photographs that we see: lush green, great, wonderful, greenish, bluish water bodies kind of stuff. But on the flip side, you will see these kind of stuff. This is part of Sharavati River Basin, which was my postdoctoral study area. And there are streams, perennial streams, large trees, canopy trees. right? The grasslands of Western Ghats, you can see like it's something that one will be lost in looking at the greenery. But at the same time, what is happening is number of dams, number of projects being constructed. The recent one being the Ethinhole project. The one which I worked on is a Linganmakki Reservoir, and this one is the backwater of Gevsoppa Dam, right? So what happens then? These kind of dams that is constructed. One way people do say that hydroenergy is the green energy kind of thing. Is it so green? How much of hectares of forest has been lost? If you start calculating all those things, the greenness will change into redness soon, right? So that is what is we need to know when we talk about the ecosystem of a like river ecosystem. So some of these forest lands have been lost, and we were asked to look at what has happened in the 4 river basins in Uttara Kannada district, starting from Kali, then Bedti, there was Saganashini, and then Sharavati. We looked into different land uses. I'm not going detail about it, but this is where I'm trying to give some pointers for you to ponder. Okay. So what we got was something like 32 species from 8 families. Some are endemic. Let's not worry. What it finally gave out is if one needs to pitch in for the regions where which is species rich and still not disturbed by human elements, these are the circled regions where one needs to figure out and bring in conservation measures or restore the system as such, because they still hold endemic species, they still hold some of the intact forest patches not disturbed by human elements. So if we do that, so there is an element of maintaining the ecosystem for amphibians to thrive for long duration. Okay, so that's one of the study. I also did some studies in Bangalore urban lakes. We looked into something like 16 lakes in and around Bangalore. What we observed, again, I'm not going to give you the details of the study, which is under preparation, manuscript is under preparation. What we figured out is that as you move from center of the city towards the periphery, the diversity decreases. Sorry, the diversity increases. At the center of the city, amphibians are almost nil. You will get only common toad. Apart from that, you don't get any other species. But as you move towards periphery of the city, you still have some of the water bodies which are not being put through the sewage system. So they are still having something like 10 to 13 different species. But all of a sudden, when some of the parastatal government agencies started saying that we are going to look into lake systems and we want to rejuvenate lake systems, what they forgot is that lake should be seen as an interaction between land and water. It should be seen as a source of water and for which it was built. But what they converted into is like a teacup, which is perhaps done for joggers' paths, which will be fenced off, and there is no interaction between land and water. It is more of a civil engineer structure. There's no ecological thinking in constructing these lakes. So this has led to further decline of amphibians. And you also know that restoration of lake failed within 2 years because sewage again started getting into these lakes. So unless you separate out the stormwater drainage to sewage, none of the ecosystem restoration is going to be healthy. So almost all, 99% of the lakes in Bangalore are now sink of sewage. They were initially planned as source of water, but they are turned out into sink of sewage resources. So one needs to think through these things in order to restore an ecosystem. But many times, what is sold to people is that the buildings or the apartment complex coming next to the water body, saying that you are going to have a lake view apartment. It's fantastic. It's a lake view apartment. You are going to see the lake, but what kind of lake it is and how much you are going to pollute that lake, how much you are going to retreat the sewage that you are going to send it out. Are you doing that? Nobody wants to know about that, but that's the hard fact one needs to know before restoring the ecosystem. I will go to my final part of the talk, which is on batrachariums and citizen science initiatives and the Kappegudu. So once I got in understanding the ecosystems of lakes in Bangalore and the land river systems in Western Ghats, what I was trying to do is how can we bring back some of the things without being very what do you say, very obvious kind of. So when you say that I'm going to do some eco restoration, there is obviously questions about how you are going to do. Are you bringing back like 300-year-old kind of ecosystem and all? So what we started off with is not to discuss about ecosystem restoration, but put it in a different perspective. So these methods, again, we can come back and discuss later. What we did was we first mapped the areas where we are going to work, where are water bodies, what kind of ecosystem it is already embedded in, right? This is Mannapapu Mane, which is in Mala village. This is Hotel Taj in Madikeri. And this is Honey Valley Estate, which is in Honey Valley, Kodagu, right? So what we did was, whatever the landscape is, we are not going to recreate a new ecosystem. We are not going to do an aquarium kind of stuff, saying that I will put an aquarium inside my home and put all the fishes which are endemic here and say I'm going to conserve it. Instead of that, we mapped the regions on the natural in situ itself, in the natural element itself, and then said, these are the places where people can come, visit, look for amphibians. And this is the kind of diversity of amphibians available in the area. So we provided some booklets for people. We provided how you have to be safe in order to look at amphibians and what kind of species one can look for. And it's also not purely scientific. It can also open up in terms of engaging with frog sound. If somebody wants to just sit and sketch a frog, they can do it. So it was more of an individual engagement in terms of looking at the system, so that at the end of the day, there is some bit of understanding of ecology comes into their mind. Because at the end of the day, I don't want all the people who are visiting these hotels or these places turn into an ecologist and then all start becoming like conserving amphibians. I want them to do what they are doing, whether it's a computer job or it's a desk job or somewhere, whatever they are doing. But at the same time, they should have a little concern about ecology. If they're able to do that, that is the greater contribution in conservation or in ecosystem restoration. So some of these places now have a lot of people coming over there, looking at amphibians and trying to say, oh, this is what the species we observe. Oh, this is what the species we observe. And in turn, this has helped in looking at the diversity of the region, right? Like if this is done in next couple of years, now I will have a data that is coming from people who have observed it, saying that this is the biological diversity of amphibians in that particular locality. And I need not have to do as an external force to say, oh, now we have to conserve this area, we have to fence it up. We just need to tell people that if you go and keep as it is, you are going to have this diversity remaining for many more years to come. If you continue to destroy, you are going to lose these number of species. And that is a way forward in communicating about ecological restoration. Okay, so what we did initially, we try to put posters and say these are the species one can see. But later on, we felt that that's going to actually tarnish the aesthetic value of the landscape. We then removed these posters that we have put in there. So these are the posters which says what kind of species you can look for. Now what we have done is we have removed all these things. We are providing a small booklet for anybody going over there. They can flip the book, understand it, and if they feel that the book is of no use for them, they can return that book. So somebody else who is coming over there can make use of that book. So you can see that these are some of the posters we initially kept, but we have removed it now. And one of the other story I need to mention it here is eco restoration done by people who got inspired by some of the work that we did, and also it's their individual motivation also. This is Ashoka Vardhana and Dr. Krishna Mohan. I will just check whether it can open. Yeah, it will open, but I need to, I think, stop sharing this and I have to go to, okay, just a minute. Yeah, if I can share the screen. I'm just trying to, yeah. So if you see this particular blog by Ashoka Vardhana, who is son of Professor G.T. Narayan Rao. So he has purchased about 15 acres of an agricultural land in Bisle. Bisle is a region in the western side of the Western Ghats. And what they did was they just purchased it and they didn't do anything. They just kept it as it is. They didn't even collect the kind of fruit that is available from the forest over there. And in the January this year, what they did was they put a small container and They said that this entire forest region is available for researchers to come and use it, and it's free of cost. And then they termed it as Kappegudu. And thanks to Ashok Vardhana and Dr. Krishna Mohan, they said that they are inspired by the kind of citizen science initiatives that we were doing in Bisle, and they named it as Kappegudu. Kappegudu in Kannada is like, Kappegudu is frog nest. It's nothing but the nest of the frog. Okay, so why I am trying to bring in over here is that it's also a way of eco restoration. In a way, they are not disturbing anything over there apart from putting the container over here. But again, if you look at the kind of sewage that is they are trying to treat, the kind of water they are trying to make use of, these are all very minimalistic. And the entire intention is also towards the research. And if somebody comes over there, they should come for research orientation rather than trying to stay there and party kind of stuff. That is, it is not open for that. So anybody who is interested in looking at what Ashok Vardhan has to say, please look into his this particular blog post, and you will perhaps understand much better. I will go back to my presentation again. Just a minute. Oh. Sorry for that. Okay. Where did it go? Just a minute, people. Okay, yeah. So yeah, here. So that was Kappegudu, and then we had citizen science initiatives, and this is like you take people out, and there are artists, there are commerce students. We are not asking them, like as I was telling earlier too, I am not asking them to become frog biologists, but if you are sitting in a particular place and trying to understand, your dimension should change in looking into an ecosystem. You should perhaps see where the water is coming from, who is the one who is using the water downstream, and what as individuals, when we come sit there, we are contributing to it. Are we polluting it? Even though we say we are just simply sitting over there, are we really sitting over in that manner? What happens to the food materials that we waste? So in a way, we are engaging people in order to understand the ecosystem. If somebody becomes aware of the ecosystem functioning, then eco-restoration need not happen only in the Western Ghats. It can happen even in your right next to your home. Whatever you have in your backyard can still bring back certain elements of the same ecosystem, right? So that's what we try to do. We motivate a lot of people, whether they are photographers or family people, anybody who can come there. We just try to tell them why amphibians are required, kind of thing. You can also engage with people. You can see that it's more playfulness with which we engage with students, and then that will lead into understanding much better in the forest what happens to amphibians and all, right? And we also have a Creative Commons licensed web portal called Frog Watch India, where people can report some of the amphibians. In a way, when people report it, it's also for us to understand how the distribution of amphibians are happening, whether that particular species require any conservation necessary needs, or we are able to just understand how large the distribution is. That's the kind of contribution one can do in terms of ecological restoration. So these are some of the materials that we provide for people. And I think with that, I will end my session. The whole idea at the end of the day is that whether it's eco-restoration in like taking amphibians as a species, one needs to understand it's a larger context. And eco-restoration need not happen only in the regions like Western Ghats. It can happen even in Bangalore. We need to figure out a place where we can think about it, and what we are losing out, if we have a list of it, we can certainly have people's participation to bring it back. And that's what I call people participated ecological restoration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. So it is very honor to us, very honor. You are with you are accepted our invitation to present. So we can call you are amphibian man. So your presentation showed us a complete picture of the all amphibians, and you are nicely connected how the amphibians are very, very important to maintain the ecology. And one should not neglect the role of amphibians in the food chain and in the functions of the ecosystem. So it is very, very important. And apart from your research, you also take an initiative to sensitize and create awareness. So definitely it is going to motivate our students and the younger generation as far as the environmental protection is concerned. So definitely I would be very happy, and your presentation was very excellent, and it is motivating to our participants.
Thank you, sir.
And,
Thank you.
let me take some questions.
Please,
If
please.
you have any question and answer. Sir, one question from my side. We have not received any questions.
Okay, okay.
And how severe, how sensitive these amphibians, especially to the water pollution, and is there any link between amphibians and air pollution, sir?
Absolutely. So there are two things. When water pollution happens, you will start seeing number of frogs coming up with malformations, because amphibian eggs are anamniotic, in the sense there is no protective layer around the embryo, nor there is any egg shell around the eggs. So what happens is all the chemicals that is getting into the water gets directly attacking to the developing embryos. And these embryos perhaps will have 4 legs or 2 heads or loss of an eye or something of that. The malformation is a great example of the chemical pollution that happens in the water bodies, right? And what was your second question?
Any connection between amphibian
air pollution and this one?
pollution?
Yes. So amphibian skin is a very porous thing. They call cutaneous respiration that happens in amphibians. So let us say if you are in a particular place and somebody sprays certain things, you perhaps get an itching on your skin and you itch and move on. But whereas in amphibians, there are the small pores, the particulates actually enters into the skin, and then that gets circulated into the body, and you can see skin lesions that's going to happen to the frog. Generally, frogs try to run from the place where there is a disturbance. Even in terms of minute temperature variation, even 2-degree temperature variation, you will not find a frog in that particular area, because the range of temperature variation is between 20 to 30 degree at the most. And anything beyond 30, they are going to desiccate. They are going to lose a lot of water, and they just desiccate and die. Instead of that, they try to move to a place which is much colder. For example, in summer, if you have seen a lot of frogs on the wall, like we call tree frogs, behind the photo, like if you have photographs in your home, you can see some of the frogs hiding behind that or behind the curtain, because those are the places where you will have moisture, and frogs try to move towards the moisture places. So any air pollution, any variation in temperature, frogs are definitely going to react to that, and they run away from the place. That's one of the reasons they are also called bioindicators. We have research studies that has been done which talks about forest logging, the variation in chemical compounds, what happens to malformation in tadpoles. There are works from Coimbatore University where they have looked into the malathion, the chemical pesticides that's being used, and what are the impacts on tadpole development and all. Yeah.
Sir, one more question from my side.
Yes, please.
Have you identified any particular species among the amphibians as any like a bioindicators showing the severity of water pollution?
Okay. As of now, one thing I can say is many of the endemic species, whether it is night frog species, which belong to a family called Nyctibatrachidae, or the species of dancing frogs, which are called Micrixalidae. Both of them, you will not find them anywhere apart from Western Ghats. One of the key reasons is being that they want canopy, they want perennial stream. Even if the perenniality of the stream is changed, these species will not be there. And chemical contamination is a great example of agriculture field. The forest patch adjacent to agriculture field will have these species. The agriculture field will not have it. And the main reason is the chemical contamination and the openness of the canopy. That we are able to show it through landscape changes, not at the level of chemicals, right? But there are species which are like the Malabar tree toads and all, they have shown, and this year even the bullfrog has shown the change in the climate. For example, we had the taute, which has came and hit us in the month of May. Some of the species which are supposed to breed in early June have bred in the month of May. Now, what does it mean? It means that they found that that's the start of the monsoon. But with just release of taute, then there was a dry spell. Now, whatever eggs they have released, they will all die because there is no water. The water was available only for those 3 or 4 days when taute was there. Once that is over, there was severe sunlight for next 2 weeks, all these eggs will die off. So you can see that there is an impact of climate change too, right? So the preponement of breeding season for about 10 days or even 2 days has a severe impact on their entire life cycle. So some of these things are like at Indian scenario, we are working on it. But if you look at, like, if you search for impacts of pesticides with amphibians, there are plenty of research that has happened. Blostin and Wake's paper from US is a great example to discuss with students, because it's the students who showed them that some of the frogs have malformations, and Blostin Wake then figured out that it is because of the chemical they use. They use something called atrazine over there, which is a pesticide, how we used DDT earlier. And that has impacted the tadpoles, and that is why they have malformation in the frog. There are a lot of studies outside India.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Very nice presentation, sir. I have one question.
Please.
I'm Dr. Shuraju.
Please, sir.
So, how does frog sense that external environmental condition?
So this was a question. It was posed in 1998, one of the paper, which was published on locating how do they sense even the vibration, earthquake vibrations and all. The key answer is the porous skin. So the skin which opens up to the external environment, then they lead into the neural network that is below the skin, and that senses the changes in the chemical composition around the frog. So if there is a change in the humidity, if there is a chemical contaminant, all these things triggers the frog to say this is not a congenial environment, and that's why it moves off. It's the skin of the frog which is more sensitive than anything else.
Because you have told, because in recent days, their early development stage, the ecosystem is highly contaminated, it is highly disturbed in recent days.
Correct.
Even in a deep forest also, contaminated or leached out.
Correct.
So in such cases, most probably that sense what frogs or other amphibians are doing.
Yeah.
Maybe they do malfunction and they cause a lot of adverse effect. Like, as you said, instead of breeding in the early June, they have bred already in the early May.
Correct.
So I think contamination is one of the key factors which is going to affect a lot on that ecosystem.
So the other mechanism, and there was a review paper that has come also, is that some of the frogs, because of the chemical contamination, it's a very nice structured thing. So what happens when the frog is developing, the mechanism to turn on their immunity is switched off. So and the frogs are more prone to viral infections or fungal infections, and these are the frogs. Then when the frog and the fungus figures out there is no internal mechanism to resist, they attack, and frogs are dying en masse, in the sense there will be entire population which is being wiped out. And these are called fungal infections. You can just Google it and see that there are a lot of fungal infections have wiped out thousands of frogs in a go, and that's inside a very intact forest. People were unable to figure out there is no chemical contamination, but why it is happening? It is happening because the mechanism to switch on the internal resistance is switched off, and that's how they are just wiped out. So that's one of the reasons. And there are many more, sir. It's a very synergistic thing that one can look into frogs and figure out what is actually happening.
So even in your study days, during your journey on amphibians, have you come across any unusual development or diversified species due to the contamination or pollution?
We haven't as such, but we have seen malformations, and there is a again, it's a citizen science initiative where we are asking people to report if they're seeing frogs with multiple limbs, if you are seeing frogs with eye being lost, if they have seen frogs without hands and all. There is a citizen science initiative, malformed frogs. You can see it on India Biodiversity Portal. We are asking people to participate and just try to show us what kind of species they are looking at. Then we will be able to relate why it perhaps is happening in that area.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, sure.
Can I ask one question?
Please.
Hi. So in Valparai, they'll be extensively using the pesticides for the tea.
Yeah.
For their growth.
Yeah.
And most of this tea patch, in between the tea patches also, there are lots of swamp.
Yeah.
And this swamp is another ecosystem. You find lots and lots of amphibians in that.
Correct.
And so basically these swamps mostly on the lower part of the tea patches, and while they are spraying during the monsoon time, it all leach and it will get into the swamp. And we haven't seen much affected by chemicals by amphibians here. And I don't know whether we have done any studies on that.
Yeah.
But we haven't found any dying amphibians in this swamp.
Okay.
But do you think over the year, it will accumulate into the frog that might cause in future in any malfunctioning? What do you think about that?
True. So, Srinivas, it's like this. Some of the things are like biomagnification kind of thing. You may not see any impact right now. And there was also one paper by Dr. Ranjit Daniels, who said that some of the chemicals that is being sprayed is in fact a fungicide kind of thing, which perhaps prevent the fungus to go into amphibians. So that's one of the reason kind of. But if you look at the work of Pooja and her sister, they worked in coffee plantations in Coorg, which is which is without chemical fertilizer, other one is organic. The diversity itself is varying. Where you use certain chemicals, some of the species are really intolerant to any changes in that. Some of the species are very tolerant. Perhaps the toads and all, which have evolved recently, and they are very very hardy species in the sense they can tolerate to certain extent of changes in the temperature, certain changes in the chemical, so they can tolerate. Even some of the frogs in Bangalore, you can see them in the filthiest of the water. Perhaps in the evolutionary sequences, they have figured out how to be there and resilient in this environment, and those are the ones which might have survived. Perhaps another 10 years down the line, you may see the change in the population. That's when we'll be able to say this is what might have happened due to the chemical changes.
That's what my concern. Like right now we don't see any changes, but it could change over the period
of time.
When there's chemical accumulate and that's one concern we always worried.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Srinivas.
I think the discussions definitely throws a light on scope of amphibian work, and our researchers, our student can take up a lot of research work, especially related with the amphibian response towards environmental pollution. So definitely it will be useful to our participants, our MSc students. After completing, some of the students wanted to study and enter into the research field. So definitely it is a nice presentation, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for your valuable time. And on behalf of our institution, I extend my sincere thanks to you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Lingaraja, sir. Thank you very much.
And our next speaker is Amarakshar VM. Currently is working as Assistant Conservator of Forest in Mudigire Forest Division. So I welcome you, sir.
Namaste. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir. You are audible. You go ahead with your presentation, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Lingat, sir. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Hello. Am I
Good
audible?
afternoon, sir. Please go ahead, sir.
Yeah, yeah.
You are audible.
Yeah. Thank you, Lingat, sir. It was a good day, like having a panelist of two eminent researchers and having two young forest officers who are just discovering how the forest works and how to manage forest. Like I would say, it's one of the good composition you're framed as a panelist. Okay, I'll start with my presentation. I'll be talking on like what is a forest department role. Like we have heard now, like what researchers actually do to understand the ecology part of the forest and how they build up the knowledge. And as a forest department, we being the end user of it, because we need to implement it on the field. I'll be talking about like how the forest department actually works in eco restoration. So before moving to the topic, I would bring about some element of, I would say, a concept of physics, or it would be like a concept of thermodynamics to be discussed a bit, because I, being from a physical science background, that is, I'm being an engineer in studies, I consider this concept would really help us in understanding eco restoration to a very great extent. So like when we say environment, right? So in order to say environment, I would say like first we need to define a system, like where we are taking up the study. Then we are going to understand like what are the parameters inside the system which we need to study. And later on, we decide what are the parameters in the environment which is going to interfere with the performance of the system. So in complete, the system and surrounding, which is a thermodynamic concept, we call it as a universe. That is, we are concentrating our study on a particular, it could be like as Gurat sir was studying on amphibians, I would say like amphibians are the system, and we take several parameters which affects the amphibian as an environment. And this completely, that is the system and the surrounding, makes the universe. So moving ahead, like we'll just find out like what to consider as a system and a surrounding in this slide. For me, in order to just, because I want to be more appealing to the students, so that it would turn to be something advantageous after the end of the presentation. Let me just narrate a story, like how this system and surrounding concept, which I'll be using throughout my presentation. Let me consider, like I'll just narrate a story. A small lad was very thirsty. He came to home and he asked his mother, like, can I have a glass of water? She said, okay, I'll fetch you a glass of water. When she went to get the water from a drinkable water source, she found out that she was getting a polluted water from the tap. She was really astonished. She didn't know like what to do on, and eventually realized that like herself, our kids, and the surrounding people were throwing trash into the water bodies, the nearby. The water body was totally polluted, and the person, that is the small lad whom we have now, was totally irritated, right? So now I want to consider the small lad as a system, right? If he is a system, I would say like the surrounding would be a water. Since this water has an influence on the lad, that is, it is going to have an impact on the lad. Finally, if the surrounding does not give a good impact, then we'll be having a person with lot of irritation. I would say like much disorderness set into him. So moving ahead with this concept, I want to introduce to a well-known concept. I think most of the science graduates have been introduced to this concept of entropy during their 11th and 12th standard. This entropy is nothing but a property which is used to measure the disorderness in any of the system. I would say like for measuring the temperature, we use Celsius, centigrade, or Fahrenheit scale. In order to measure any disorderness, we use a property which is called as entropy. And it's a concept. I'll just brief out. I'll not spend much time on this, but this is one of the core ingredient for my presentation. The system entropy will increase or decrease, like it's a concept. The surrounding entropy can also increase and decrease, but the principle of increase of entropy always says that the universe entropy never decreases. It keeps on increasing. So what it means is, so you can just see the figure on the right. The solid entropy, I would say it's very less. The reason is there is no disorderness. The molecules are perfectly arranged. When it comes to liquid, its entropy is slightly more when compared to solid, but it's manageable. But when it comes to gases, its entropy is very high. That's the reason it's very difficult to handle the gas. It's very easy to handle solids because they are in perfect order. Their disorderness is very less. So the entropy is going to be very less for the solids, and it's going to be highest for the gases. Similarly, as the concept of entropy says that for the universe, the entropy keeps on increasing, and especially in the natural processes, which are spontaneous, right? The entropy never decreases. So on the other hand, we should now visualize and understand whether our Earth entropy is increasing, right? So I'll be discussing this in the next slide. You can see the Earth entropy truly is increasing with a lot of events and the phenomena which are taking place. Some are natural phenomena and some are man-made disasters, which is creating a lot of increase in Earth's entropy. Surely, the natural phenomena or the natural disasters takes place after a very long period of time, right? I would say like there is a huge residence time from one phenomena to another phenomena. But when it comes to the man-made disasters, they are really very intense, right? You can just look at the slides like in natural disasters, we have earthquake, floods, hurricane, and the droughts. And when it comes to man-made disasters, we are polluting the water bodies. There is a lot of pollution in the environment. And as a result of which, there is a lot of health issues. And presently the pandemic we all are going through, right? These are all man-created disasters, and this surely adds a lot to the increase of entropy of the Earth. So what to do then? Like, as the law says, the entropy will keep on increasing, and we presently know that the Earth's entropy is on increase, right? So what we can do now? We can't decrease the Earth's entropy because it's a very huge system, and decreasing its entropy to a very great extent would be impossible. Its entropy is going to increase day by day. There is a disorderness set each second. But what we can do? The thing is, we can just reduce the rate of entropy decrease, right? The entropy is increasing, but what we can do? The rate at which the entropy is increasing, we can keep a hold on it. Right. So there are so many, there are a number of participants who are working really very hard in order to control this rate of entropy increase of the Earth. right? As we have seen, like we have the panelist members like Srinivasan sir and Puraj, who are really working a lot in order to understand the ecology and the forest dynamics, and the other researchers who are building the knowledge and finding out like what effects are being done to the environment and the biosphere by the human activities, and how we can really plug in this higher increase of entropy of the earth. Similarly, like the forest department whom I am representing is also working a lot in order to decrease the rate of increase of Earth's entropy. And how actually we do. See, like being a mechanical engineering in graduation, like when I aspired for entering into a forest service, I actually did not have much idea like what actually the forest department does. And once I got selected also, I didn't have much idea like what actually the forest department does. But since I am into the profession now, like I practice forestry in the forest department, which is the main stake in applying all the programs, policies, research results on ground. I truly understand the forest department is not just Ganga the Gudi, which most of the people think like. They feel like we really always be in the ambit of forest, and we ride horses, and we have a close connection with elephants. We understand the language of elephants. It's not the case. The only aim what the forest department aims at is we want to keep our planet clean, right? We really want the Earth's entropy to decrease to an extent so that we can live happily. And also the forest department is one of the department, I would say, I really feel happy in commenting this. Most of the department in our government system works for only one species, that is Homo sapiens, that is for persons. We are the only department which works for millions of species, including humans. So this is the way like we contribute much to bring about the entropy of the earth to a very low value. We are trying a lot, and over that we want to keep our planet green. By keeping our planet green, we know that all other things are going to come into its place. It would be like the biodiversity, it would be like eco restoration, or anything is going to come into its place once we keep our planet green. In order to just give a brief introduction about the Karnataka Forest Department, which I am a part of, I would say like the department manages the forest wealth of Karnataka state, which is about 21.69% of its geographical area, roughly about 41,000 kilometer square of area. And we have in this forest cover, we have I would say the protected areas, that is the highly protected areas, as per the Wildlife Protection Act, the 5 national park, the 33 wildlife sanctuaries, 14 conservation reserves, and 1 community reserves. And all the activities of the forest department, that is in order to bring about the conservation, the development, and the preservation, and the management of the state forest is undertaken by around 12,000 members, from higher managerial level to the field staff who participate in keeping the Karnataka state green. Moving ahead, like I want to brief out what are the activities taken by the Forest Department of Karnataka in particular, and Forest Department in general, in order to bring about eco restoration. The first thing is we really work on degraded forest, right? As it's been said, like the humans have harvested the forest unscientifically from ages together, as a result of which our forests are in a very degraded state. You can just look at the photograph of this, like the Mysoreans, like I also being a Mysorean, will be much familiar with this hill. It's a Chamundi hill, right? Day by day, the Chamundi hill is degrading, like its biodiversity is reducing, and you can just look at the tree cover, the spot over here, like you have the naked soil, which has been exposed, as a result of which there is a chances of huge erosion, right? And these are all man-made effects on the environment, mainly because we could have heard a lot many times in the news that the Chamundi hill is on blaze, like there is a man-created fire, like which destroys the entire ecosystem of Chamundi hill, and there are some developmental works which also brings about destruction to Chamundi Hill. So overall, the forest department is working on upgrading its biodiversity level. Like we want to restore it. So there are so many activities taken by the department in order to work on its degraded forest, so that the ecosystem services which it provides are restored. So this is one of the important activity which the forest department undertakes. And also, we also because of several issues, like the soil compatibility was not there, or it could be like the species migration to that area, and the regeneration of the area is really very difficult. So all these difficulties has brought about lots of restriction for that piece of land to get converted into wooded lot or forest. So we really work much on afforestation work. See, another important thing, like which I want to bring to the notice of the participants is that whenever we say forest, right, we have much inclination towards the Western Ghats, which is surely an asset to Karnataka, I would say, like. But when you visualize the geography of Karnataka, the much of the area of Karnataka comes in a dry zone, right? So in this dry zone, there is a huge landscape wherein we can really create the different kinds of forest. Probably we can't create Western Ghats over there, right? The wet evergreen forest. I would say, like, we can really regenerate the area so that the forest and the trees, the biodiversity increase can be augmented in those areas. So these are the works which the forest department takes up. The afforestation work is one of the important work the forest department have in its agenda. Moving ahead, we work on reforestation work. See, obviously, like there would be cross of views between a researcher and a practitioner, like it need to be accepted. So whenever we say like a patch of forest, I would say like in a reserve forest, a patch of forest is really worked out. In the meaning, we need to fell a few trees and we are going to regenerate it. You can just look at the slides over here. Like we had a piece of land which is totally green, and some patch is removed. Again, it is regenerated, right? Again, we remove some patches. Again, it is regenerated, and this is called as commercial forestry. Right. See, there is a lot of dependence on forestry from ages. It would be like the timber requirement, all houses and all offices and everything. Like mostly, I would say like in order to develop a very unique acoustic lab, we require a high quality of wood. Right. The wood comes from the forest. Right. So basically, the commercial forestry is also practiced these days. Even though like the commercial forestry has a very low key, and we are more concerned with conservation forestry, the commercial forestry also plays some of its important dimension in the forest department. But we are sure that in order to run this commercial forest business, the land which has been clear felled is regenerated, and it has been stocked with a native species, so that again this regeneration and the restoration process keeps on going. And as a result, we are able to utilize this renewable renewable source of, I would say like a renewable source, which is a forest, can be renewed again, and it can be used and put into certain good users. And also I would like to comment on that. Whenever a tree is felled, right, a carbon content like which it has absorbed has been converted into a furniture, right, and we safeguard that furniture, and I would say like we are stocking that carbon in a very good form. It's a form of storing the carbon so that it is not degenerated and get back to the environment, and further increases the carbon dioxide content in the atmosphere and brings about the global warming, which is the issue now, right? So the commercial forestry is one of the angle, and also the reforestation work which we take up is in most of the natural calamity areas, like especially this is a photograph which I have taken during my attachment as a RFO Mudigere. Like the Mudigere suffered huge landslides in the year 2019 because of severe rainfall. So we try to rejuvenate the landslide area. It's really very tough. Like once the vegetation is removed and the naked soil has been exposed and the topsoil is washed out, it's really very difficult to regenerate the area. But the forest department really works with other researchers and with active studies and passive studies and experiences. We try to green the naturally calamity hit areas. So this is one of the example I would like to say. And also in Ballari, if you see, there are a lot of mines which has been working there, but there is a stringent requirement which has been imposed in mining areas that it should be rehabilitated. Like once the mining is in progress or it's been completed, the area should be rehabilitated. It should be brought into green cover. So all these activities are taken up by the forest department. And moving ahead, another important dimension the forest department is really working is greening the urban area. So we can see that in Mysuru, especially this is a photograph in Mysuru where you can see the ring road in the Mysuru is brought into green, right? So we really work and getting a tree or a plant to flourish in urban areas is really very difficult, right? If we have a plantation, getting it regenerated is a bit quite easy when compared to greening the urban area. There is a lot of tools and techniques which is really required to greening urban area, and the forest department is really working a lot in most of the urban areas to bring under the green cover. So moving ahead, apart from creating a forest, like within the forest and regenerating it, there is another dimension these days which is being given much emphasis. That is creating a forest outside the forest. It is usually called as a tree outside forest, that is abbreviated as TOF. We encourage people in order to grow commercial forestry on the land, because as I have said, now the emphasis of commercial forestry is given a very low scope in the forest department, because we are giving much inclination to conversion angle, and most of our forests are in degraded state. So in order to supplement the requirement of timber and other forest producers, we encourage people to grow trees. These are the economically exploitable trees on their farmland, so that they fetch up the revenue and also they help in stocking the carbon. So these are the activities which the forest department take up, the extension activities, so that the people also participate in the goal of ecosystem restoration. And also in order to encourage forestry, we distribute seedlings to public, right? So in order to plant a tree, tree and take care of it and creating a woodlot, especially like in order to ignite the young minds. We have a program which is called as MMSV, that is abbreviation for Magultundu Mara Shale Banduvana, which says that like a child is given a plant, and when a child plants that plant, the entire school is going to get a forest of its own. So this is one of the scheme which has been implemented by the forest department. There are several other schemes, like I'll be not going detail into it. Moving ahead, like this is one of the important role of the forest department, which most of them don't know about it. The one thing is, in the forest department are the custodian. They are the source of rivers, right? So we have first order stream, second order stream, third order stream, and all these join together and form a river. And these are the forest are the, I would say the forests really work like a natural dam, giving us the source of water for the entire living being on this earth. So it really becomes very important for us in order to manage the forest, in order to conserve this water, right? So in order to concentrate on this, we work into engineering works like check dams, building check dams, percolation pond, gully checks in the forest area, so that our forest area also get rejuvenated, and also we increase the moisture content in the soil. Thereby we also work on water conservation and satisfy the people and the living beings, other living beings need on water. And the other area the forest department works in eco-restoration is to reduce the dependence of people on forest producers. Mostly the people who live inside the forest or who habitat at the infringes of the forest are heavily dependent on the forest for their livelihood. It would be like in order to meet their energy demand, they really lop trees, they cut the branches of the trees unscientifically, and they use it as a firewood. Even though the using of firewood is really is very it also causes pollution and also severe health disorders, and it also creates loss to the biodiversity. So we really work on engaging people in forest conservation and wildlife conservation by motivating them to satisfy their energy demands by using LPG gas or solar lights, and not to venture into the forest for collecting the honey, but rather than doing apiculture by their own. So all these activities we really encourage, so that we can bring about our role of eco-restoration to a large extent. Moving ahead, we also take up several projects in villages, taluks, and also in cities by creating what is called as tree park. The tree park has been named after the Salumara, the Timbaka, who is, I think everyone knows about this great lady. She really has given what an individual can really contribute in, I would say, like in putting in my own words, to reduce the decrease of entropy of the earth, right? So in the name of her, we create the tree park. Like I think most of the Mysoreans and also like in other urban areas, you can just walk into the tree park which the forest department manages to find out like how the tree parks have been constructed, how it has been visualized, and how it has been put into place, so that it really brings about education, and also appreciation for the nature is also brought in the hearts of the visitor, right? The Mysoreans can visit Salumarada Timaka Park. And this is one of the view. You can just see on the slide. You can view a Kelgu tree park in Aldur, like it belongs to Chikmagalur district. So these are the various projects which the forest department takes in order to bring about eco-restoration. And the another important part of eco-restoration, I would say, like before planting a tree, we should really have a land to plant a tree, right? These days on we have a lot of, I would say, like the major issue which the forest department is facing is the shortage of land. Our land has been grabbed, right, by the people and by the other, I would say, like the people in terms of individual, community, or industrialist, right? You can name it anyone, the forest land has been grabbed because it's a very easy resource which can be grabbed from us. When a piece of land is gone, right, I would say like it brings about much damage to the earth, and it increases the entropy. So there we really work in. You can just see the photograph wherein there is an encroachment drive which recently took place in 2020s at Masakali Reserve Forest. You would say like you can just look at the landscape over here. You can just see there, like there is a lot of trees over there and the coffee is there. Like what is the point of cutting out the coffee, and we are really destroying the biodiversity over there. It's not the actually case. It's a part of the reserve forest, and for a forest is high, the coffee plantation is a green desert, right? So the reason is when you compare desert with the Western Ghats, definitely in the Western Ghats we have more biodiversity. Similarly, in the coffee plantation and the nearby Western Ghat forest will be having very less biodiversity in the coffee plantation. So these coffee plantations has been raised in the forest area, and it is really very painstaking to tackle such issues when it comes to field condition, right? The forester and its team need to take a lot of pressure from the public and other systems in order to get a piece of land shifted for planting trees and growing trees, increasing its biodiversity and making it forest once again, right? This is one of the tasks which we take up, that is encroachment, eviction, and we also work on cancellation of the illegal land grants which has been given by the revenue authorities. Moving ahead, like in order to secure our forest boundaries, we keep on continuously surveying it and securing the forest boundary through patrolling. This is what been depicted in the photo in the slide. So moving ahead, the another important aspect which the forest department really need to address is balancing the conservation with development. So it's when we come as a implementing agency, like we can't really ignore the development part, right? So we can't see like we are conserving the forest and all, and we are seeing a lot of poverty, and there is a lot of hunger, there is no development, there is a lot of unemployment. This cannot happen, right? So the forest department really works on it. Whenever a project is being floated to bring about a development in a region, it need to have the forest clearance. We really take it as a challenge to see that whether these projects really bring about a development in the area, and also simultaneously whether they participate in the conservation work. For an example, like whenever a forest land has been diverted, right? We take an equivalent land somewhere else and we forest it. We create a forest over there. Even though like it's really very difficult. Like whenever I said, whenever we lose a piece of forest land and again regenerating it to become a forest takes days together. But there should be a delicate balance between the conservation aspect and the development aspect in order to achieve the sustainable development goals. So the forest department really works very hard to protect and conserve their forest resources. So moving ahead, there are umpteen number of problems what the forest department really faces, in the face of eco restoration. So there is, I think, mostly in the late winters and the early summers, we hear a lot of news on forest fire, right? The photograph in the photo is of the Bandipu, which got blazed in the year 2019, right? There was a lot many hectares of forest was burnt. It was turned into ash, right? And the forest department need to be on their toes to really protect its forest from forest fire. Mostly the forest fires has been caused in India by the miscreants, the people like who have enmity with the forest department. I would just give an example for this. It could be like when a piece of land is being encroached, and I, being a forest officer, I am duty bound to evict that person. That person has a grudge on me, right? So what he does is, in the months of late winters, summer, he set the forest on fire, right? So in order to just to sort out what to say, the personal rivalry with the forest department, most of the forest resources are being burnt off, right? So this is one of the area which the forest department really works on, so that we take a lot of measure in order to prevent this forest fire and conserve our forest. And there is pathological and entomological control and management is also top on our list, right? So for an example, there was a news article that the sandalwood, which the Karnataka is known for, is been attacked by a disease called as a spike disease, right? So this, if the forest department and the researchers really doesn't work on it, and we don't control the pathological and entomological aspect of the forestry, then definitely we are going to lose that species, right? So in this area also we really work to restore the ecology part. And on the other side of the coin, like when we talk about a forest officer, the forest officer as a role as a developer, you have seen that he is into several projects of greening the landscape. He is into I would say like is into policing also, wherein we catch hold of miscreants who are into this wildlife crime, right? So this is another face of the coin for forest department. We are into developmental works, and also we are into policing, so that the wildlife crime and the cutting of trees, reluctant cutting of trees and the illicit felling are brought into control. So these are the activities which the forest department takes up, so that we participate in eco restoration. So moving ahead, as I've already said, like the forest is a renewable resource, right? And there is a lot of dependency of people on forest. And actually, I will say, I would like to point out that each one of us are influenced by forest produce. It would be like the nap or the sleep we take on the bed, the sofa, the decorative sofa we have in our house, or the doors, the windows, right? So there are a lot of produce from the forest, that is the honey, the bamboo, the cinnamon, the biodiversity genes, like which we'll be using for developing agricultural crops. All these resources need to be managed, right? So that there is a scientific management, we don't over exploit it. Even though it is a renewable source, we don't eat away into the resources to a very large extent, that we don't give much time for its renewal. So we really work a lot on forest resource management. There's a list which have been given in the slide, like the sandalwood, the timber, the firewood, the bamboo skins, and the non-timber forest produce. With our other, I would say, like it's a the sister department, the sister corporations with the forest department, like KFDC, KSFIS, KCDC. We really work on managing the forest to satisfy our want for forest resources. And this is what which has been highly pitched, like the forest department are always with wildlife, right? The same thing which has been portrayed in most of the Kannada movie and other Bollywood movie, like the forest department. You think just the foresters are in the forest. We are with friendly with wildlife, right? So this is one of the area which the forest department is known in the society. We really work in conserving the wildlife we have, right? We look into their protection. We work on improving their habitat by working with researchers. We figure it out, like what kind of fodder and food need to be created inside the forest, so that they don't venture outside the forest and get into human habitation and create man-animal conflict, right? So these are the other activities which we have taken up. I think the lantana camera has been already spoken by the speaker Srinivasan sir. So I'll be not touching much on this, and this is truly, this is creating havoc inside the forest, and it's one of the main reason for creating the forest fire in Bandipur, right? And I want to touch on this little creature, like what the public really do harm to the ecosystem. This little creature, it's called as a red-eared slider. It's not native to India. It doesn't come under Wildlife Protection Act. So these creatures are sold in the pet shop, and the people who are fascinated about keeping turtles as the pet, they do keep it. So what happens is with time, when the slider grows out of their aquarium, so they don't want to care for it. So they find okay, I'm doing a noble service for it, and they go and leave this small creature inside a pond, right? And this is another invasive species similar to lantana cambra. This red-eared slider is an invasive species. It has a very high rate of metabolism. It forages most of the food which the native species really require. So as a result of which, it's bringing a lot of threat to our native species, right? So this is also an invasive species. So this kind of management we take up in the forest department. And another important area of wherein the forest department works in is in order to address the man-animal conflict. This photograph has been taken by me when I had my attachment with Mudigere as a Mudigere range officer. There was a rush of 23 elephants from Beluru, which entered into Mudigere and halted for 7 days. It created a havoc, right? Addressing the people concerned, the poor, you can just see a poor lad over here, his paddy field has been totally destroyed. He's completely dependent on this, right? Whenever we don't give space for an animal inside a forest, we have degraded it totally. It finds human habitation lucrative because it has a good water source, it has good food. So these elephants venture into human habitat and create conflict with us. So managing this man-animal conflict is a very huge task for the forest department. Otherwise, the love and the affection what we have towards this wild animal will start decreasing if we don't address this. So this is one of the area where the forest department works in to bring about eco-restoration. So moving ahead, in order to work out all these forestry activities, we have a research and education wing, wherein we find out which is the best tree in our forest, which is usually called as a plus tree, right? We try to collect the seeds, right? And germinating the seed is a very difficult task. I think it has been already pointed out by the speaker Srinivasan, right? So we are also into it. We have a very good nursery in mostly in all the taluks. We have a very good nursery in order to take up the projects of greening the landscape. And we are into wildlife research with other NGOs and research institute in um, uh, improving the wildlife status of India, right? We take up that activity, and we also have zoos, rescue centers, the tree parks in order to conserve the ex-youth conservation angle. We take up a lot of research activities in the zoo, botanical gardens, and tree parks. And another important, I would say, like the ecotourism, in order to bring about some education inside the people about the conservation. All these activities are taken up by the forest department to have a task of eco-restoration in our job. So moving ahead, people participation is really very important. As it has been pitched by other speakers also, the people participation is very important. So we really encourage the people in the infringes of the village and the people who reside inside the forest to come together in the form of a committees, so that they can use the forest scientifically. Like you can just see the photograph on the slide. Like this forest has been scientifically been worked out, right? There is a logging activity which is being carried out, and simultaneously there is a regeneration activity which is being carried out. There are space given for the biodiversity, right? So we encourage people to manage their forest, which are called as village forest. So they can join hands with us in creating the social funds, right? So that the forest is not degraded. And we take a lot of helps from NGOs, researchers, academicians, and also children, because these ignited minds really know, like in the future, how to be really sensitive towards the conservation issue. So there is a scheme which has been run in the forest department, which is called as Chinnara Vana Darshana, wherein it's a 2 to 3 day camp for the school children who reside just near to the forest, in order to create the element of conservation into their grooming. And there are a lot of hobby clubs, like which really works on butterflies, birds, bats, spiders, and many. So all these people participation is really important for forest department work. So, and I would say, like the forestry training really is very important. Like when I say, if we want to decrease our Earth's entropy, that is, which is increasing at a very faster rate, we really require enthusiastic officers to come into the forest department. The very important candidates who will be managing the forest and working with other agencies of environment, conservation, and restoration. So like there are several levels by which a person can enter into a forest department. It would be through IFS, that is the Indian Forest Service. They'll be trained at IGNFA, that is Indira Gandhi National Forest Academy, or through SFS, that is the State Forest Service offices, like which I am a part of it. Like I got trained in CAS Force Coimbatore, that is Central Academy for State Forest Service, as RFO's Range Forest Officer, Deputy RFOs, the forest guard, and the forest watchers. So this is one of the way the forest training, I would say, like it's really very important in a multi-dimensional way, so that we really get a very energetic candidates into the department, and you can really work on becoming a nature warriors in order to bring about eco restoration. So moving ahead, I want to finalize my PPT with this. That, see, we can't stop the increase of entropy of the earth. We can't do it. We can just really work on decreasing the rate of increase of entropy of our abode, that is the mother earth. We can actually work on that. You can just see on the slide, like there is a cartoon which I found in the internet. Like if we consider this to be an entropy, there are so many other warriors who want to protect the mother earth, right? You can become such nature warriors by choosing different angles, by being a researcher or getting into practicing forestry in the forest department. And these are the few quotes which I took from the internet. The eminent scientists have said that, like, as we know, the energy of a universe is constant, but the entropy will never remain constant for the universe. It's in the path of destruction, like the earth is going to get destructed, it's for sure, but we can just control the rate at which the destruction has to continue, right? We don't want to hasten it. We want to slow it down, and we require the participants from different streams, different agencies and angles, so that we have a Mother Earth always caring for us. So, lastly, before concluding my presentation, I would say, like, in order to have what to say, like a liking towards trees, right? Mostly when you say tiger or the amphibian, we really have that affection because it moves. When it comes to trees, like I would say, like whether the life of a tree is something really unique, right? If you really want to understand this, please go and read this book. Like, it really exposes you to a life of a tree, and you really wonder, like, what actually a tree is doing in our life. Thank you, everyone.
Sir, thank you, sir. Very nice presentation. I think at this time, we have to respect and salute nature warriors, as you mentioned, environmental warriors. So the forest department is playing a lot of role, and you have explained a lot of elements of the forest activity and the department activity. And it was a wonderful presentation. And so at this point of time, so we have one or two questions. So what are the constructive steps to improve the green cover of Chamundi Hills and improve the soil quality around the area, as we mentioned in one of the slide?
I would say, like, it will take a lot of research, right? The one way of looking at the problem is we should bring about some technology part in our studies now, studying Chamundi Hill, not by just visit. Like, we need to use geoinformatics to study, like, what actually has happened in Chamundi Hills, why there is degradation continuing, how we can really work on it. I would say, like, there is a lot many studies need to be done.
So we have another question, sir. Sir, can you tell about the property rights scheme for social forestry or private forestry?
I could not get that question.
Property rights scheme for social forestry or private forestry?
So maybe, like, the participant is concerned with if you grow a tree, like whether the forest department owns the produce or whether the private party owns the produce. So it's like in a forest department, we have a segment of trees which are called as reserve trees. So in order to fell a reserve tree, we need to the farmer need to apply. We undergo an inspection, like, in order to just check whether it is a naturally grown tree or it has been planted. Then we issue a pass. Based on that pass, he can fell the tree and he can market it. For other trees which are not, which doesn't come in the list of reserve trees, there is no barrier. You can grow the trees and you can fell it. Example, like mostly in agroforestry, what we have now, like the Mila dubia, that tree doesn't require any permission from the forest department to fell and market.
Maybe, for example, may I just come in for some
yes, sir, please, sir. Please, sir.
Okay. Very nice presentation. And you have given us a very good bird's eye view of all the various activities of the forest restoration. Now, I would like to know, for example, as a owner of a house, I plant a few trees outside my house, maybe teak trees, with taking the help of the forest department. It grows over a period of time, 20, 30 years. Then can I harvest that tree? Or can I inherit the propriety of that to my heirs, legal heirs?
Yes, sir. So there is a two angle to it. The one thing is if your house is very close to the forest and you're growing teak trees, right? So the forest department need to keep a watch whether the tree which is being felled from your house or whether it is being felled or mixed with the trees in the forest. So what we do is for a certain geographical area, growing teak tree is considered to be a reserve tree. So if you want to grow a tree, there is no issue. If you want to fell it, then the forest department role is that we come in there, we enumerate the trees, right? We make a list, we give a felling permission to you. Once you have done with the cutting, like we undergo the checking part of it, whether the enumerated tree and the cut tree are same, there is no illicit felling or the mixing of timber has not been happened. Once it has been done, like you can use those timber for your home or you can sell it.
Thank you. The corporation doesn't come in the way?
No, sir. No, sir.
Corporation?
No, sir. No,
because
sir.
I'm growing it not in my land, it is outside my land, that is a footpath or something like that.
No, sir. If you grow what to say on government land, it becomes a government property.
That is the reason why I'm asking. Now,
no, sir.
I told you, I'm growing it outside my house, a corporation land on the footpath from the point of view of greening.
No, sir. It becomes a government property.
It becomes a corporation property, so
yeah.
it is no way belongs to me.
Yes, sir. But if it is within your compound, then you can own that tree.
That is fine. That is
yes, sir.
Yeah. Fine.
Sir, if it is the case, in case of social forestry, so is there any scheme or is there any kind of understanding between the private agency or NGOs or forest department? If social forestry, there actually they can use government land or some, kind of land where nothing can be produced. So is there any scheme to get some profit by the NGO or institute, which is going to initiate that social forestry?
Actually, like if you want to grow a tree on a government land, especially I was mentioning about VFCs, that is the village forest committees, right? The village forest committees are encouraged to participate in growing trees in the government land. And once the trees reach the economic maturity, I would say like the rotation period, they can harvest and they share the profit with the forest department.
Okay. What would be the sharing ratio, sir?
It depends upon region to region. It depends upon the class of land, like the kind of land which has been diverted for this agroforestry. Depending upon that, the sharing will be done.
Okay, thank you.
Can villages take up this such projects with under this NREGA scheme?
It has been done, sir. It's been done by a separate wing in forest department, which is called as social forestry. So we encourage NREGA scheme over there.
Sir, thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
I think the forest department has a lot of pressure. On the one side, you need to take a lot of measure to protect the wildlife. The other side, you need to manage the public also.
Yeah.
So that will be a very difficult task. But at this point of time, your presentation justified the today's environmental day celebration theme.
Yeah.
So it is a very appropriate presentation. I think the take-home message is so we have to reiterate, we have to commit ourselves to protect our environment. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your valuable time.
Thank you.
Shall we close the program, sir? Wind up the program, Ravi sir?
Yes, we can go ahead.
Yeah, there is some instructions to the participants. You know, that feedback link will be sent to the email ID what you have registered. So by using that feedback link, you can get your certificate.
So before I conclude, I extend my sincere gratitude to the authorities of JSS Academy of Higher Education and Research. And also at this point of time, I extend my sincere thanks to Dr. R. Ravindra from technical field IT support, IT department. Without his support, it would have not been possible. And I extend my sincere thanks to Dr. Ravisha K. Sir for his constant support, and Dr. Balasubramaniam, Dean Director of Research, for constant support. And also I extend my thanks to Dr. Shivaraju, HP course coordinator, for his support. And I extend my sincere thanks to all the speakers. They have presented well, they have shared their expertise, they have taken a lot of risk to share the expertise. Definitely, it was a wonderful presentation. So I thank Anusha, ACF, and scientist Guru Raja Srinivasan, and also I thank Amarakshar, Assistant Conservator of Forest from the Forest Department. And lastly, I thank all the participants, and I hope this webinar is so fruitful. Thank you all.